button. All right, the button has been hit. I think we are live. What is going on, everybody? This is Randall Thor 19, the man with the million, back again with another episode of the Xbox 2 podcast. I think we're around episode, 180 or something like this. Some 181. I don't know. A lot of episodes. But anyways, as always, I am joined by Windows Central's finest, Jez Corden of Windows Central. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, pal. How's it going? I am pretty damn tired. But, man, it has been a slow week this week. Where's all the news gone?
I don't know.
Where has all the news gone? I feel like the entire gaming industry has gone on vacation, ready to get ready for September and October, you know?
I mean, you know what's interesting is like I have seen a bunch of tweets from people that are on vacation, from Xbox and other places. So you may be right. The industry might be like, you know what? It's August. It's late July. There's nothing going on. Let's just all go on vacation. And it definitely seemed like that this week because when I was pulling topics to talk about, I was like, yo, there's there ain't much to talk about this week. But
No, there is not.
We'll
make it work.
Yeah, we will definitely try to make it work. It may not be a longer show than normal, because people do like the lengthier shows, so we'll do our best to keep everybody entertained. So I want to thank everybody for being here on a Friday. That's right, we're back on a Friday, Jez. How does it feel? Friday instead of Saturday. Although you're pretty tired, so maybe you would rather actually do the show on Saturday this week.
It's all good, man. I can't do tomorrow anyway because I'm busy and stuff like that. But I'm not too tired. I'm all right. I just sort of I got some health problems and stuff like that, and I just sort of been trying to take it easy lately.
Is the stomach problem back from last year or that you had before?
Yeah. So the stomach issues I had last year have come back. But this time I actually might have got a diagnosis. I think I might have to have my gallbladder removed.
No.
So when I go back,
I'm sure, everybody listening to this podcast, out of all these thousands of people that we normally have listening to us live, and then tens of thousands, 30,000 people that listen to this later every single week, I'm sure one of them's a doctor, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's happened before. Like, I talk about this stuff, and then people from the show on Twitter reach out. But the doctor reckons it's something to do with my gallbladder, and when I go back to England, I'll have some more tests and maybe surgery, and then hopefully I'll be all good. But alas, it's just one of them things, man. Getting old, man. You know all about that, right?
Yeah, you know 50. What? Pushing 50. No.
Fall apart, right?
This, August is my birthday month. My birthday will be later on this month. In fact, we might even do a show because my birthday falls on a Friday this year, and I will be hitting the big 4-0. So time for a midlife crisis. Yeah, not looking forward to it. Not looking forward to it.
Don't they say life begins at 40? Is that not a thing now?
Is that what they say? I don't know.
Age 0 to 40 is like the tutorial level, and then 40 is like the actual part where the game opens up.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
That's what they say, right?
Yeah, that's what they do say.
I hit 35 this year, so I want to believe that life begins at 40. So encourage me, Rand, please.
I'll let you know.
It's okay.
Maybe I'll have a nervous breakdown later on the month, but yeah, birthday, August is a big month. A lot of games to play for Xbox this month rather. Hades coming out next week, which I'm so excited about. And then 12 Minutes, another game I've been looking forward to for a long time. A dude trapped in a 12-minute time loop. I cannot wait to play that. Not to mention,
that's really intriguing.
Yeah, not to mention Psychonauts 2, which they just announced on Twitter. Double Fine said that game has finally gone gold and will be releasing on August 25th. And, me and you played the preview, both really enjoyed it, both looking forward to the final release at the end of the month. There's a couple other games like Art of Rally hits Game Pass next week. I don't have the full list, but like like we went from Death's Door to Halo Infinite tech preview, which was really good, phenomenal. Played against real people, with Cognito and Ainsley and Ty Guy Travis, which was a lot of fun. And then we went into the Ascent, and now it's like Hades. Like it's so good. There's finally a bunch of games to play, which makes me incredibly happy. Yeah, and you're sitting there playing the same game as always, but we'll get that. In a minute. Shout out to Flame with Super Chat. He says, "Is this the famous Jez Corden's Xbox 2 podcast?" Indeed, this is the Jez Corden's Xbox 2 podcast. Honestly, it should just be called the Xbox One podcast, the way people talk about it.
Xbox One plus guest.
Xbox One plus guest, and I'm the guest. Even though I'm the host, I'm the guest. Jez is he's the main draw.
Didn't we once discuss doing an Xbox 2 plus one show with a guest?
We have. I mean, it wouldn't have been the best idea to do it like this month or this week because nothing's going on. Hey, guest, how do you feel about Xbox's new controller, the Aqua Shift?
Aqua Shift?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Shout out to the UK lad for becoming the newest member. Appreciate it, man.
But I don't know, man. If we had a guest that was famous in the industry, that would be the topic, right?
Well, sure, that would be the topic. Well, I don't know. Would people want to do that? Like, me and Jazz would still do regular Xbox 2, but then maybe twice a month we would do, in addition to the Xbox 2, we would do an Xbox 2 Plus where we would have industry guests on or just a guest to talk about whatever's going on. I don't know. Would you guys be interested in that? That's something me and Jez have been talking about, but
yeah, I figured that would be like a short show, interview oriented, maybe get some developers on, talk about the industry, stuff like that. I thought that'd be pretty cool. Add some variety,
Yeah. But maybe when there's a lot more to talk about, because like August is going to be dry most likely. But yeah, I would like to do that. Let's see what the people say. Eric P in Super Chat says, "I'm here for Jez's next controversial take." I think a lot of people are. You always have some controversial take. You got anything controversial you want to share with us today, Jez, that we can kind of laugh at you for?
I think Final Fantasy 14's better than Final Fantasy 7 Remake.
Really?
That's pretty controversial.
Is that really controversial, though?
I don't know. Maybe it isn't. Some people would be triggered about that. A lot of people don't like the idea of paying a subscription for a game, but it's so good, man. It's so good. But I'm not going to talk about it. I'm actually not playing it right now, Rand.
What are you
playing? I'm playing a different game.
Oh.
I'm playing Back for Blood.
Back for Blood, yeah. We're going to talk about that for a minute because I played it as well, and it's definitely one of the few things that are actually worth talking about. So... Do you see this guy's name? Put it in the super chat. The Foreskin of Exodia, Jazz. That's a pretty good name. He says, "Is there a release date for Xbox or for Crossfire X yet? And who do you think will take 2022, Xbox or PS5?" They did say Crossfire X was on schedule for this year. We're beginning of August, so. Not many more months left to go, Jez. Do you think we get an announcement for Crossfire X this holiday? December, November, October? I mean,
well, I have been told, Rand, that Remedy's part of the game's development is complete.
Okay.
So Remedy's all the stuff that Remedy had to do, which is the story elements, all that's been done. So what's holding the game up at this point? It's all on Smartgate's end, and COVID, I guess, was a big deal, and that's probably impacted the way things have been going. But yeah, Remedy's portion of the development's finished. They shared that in their investor meeting early this year, actually. So they've been done with the game for quite a while, from what I understand. So it's just Smilegate finishing up the multiplayer console version of the game, I guess. So then they did share a blog post, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, where they said, they effectively said, the game is launching later this year, or it's on target to launch later this year. So
There's not. I mean, September would be
That's
a.
where
So September would be a nice place to announce it, or a nice place for the game to release. There's not a lot of games coming on September. October's packed. You got Far Cry 6. You got Back for Blood. You got Battlefield 2042. November is just Forza Horizon at this point, and maybe Halo Infinite, and presumably Call of Duty Vanguard. So if I was them, I'd want it out in September. But I don't know. And as for who do we think will take 2022, I mean, if you're talking sales-wise for consoles, I would imagine the PS5 will easily take it. But it's not always about the consoles. So I think that we've talked about that. And even Sony's talked about, like, it's not strictly console related. There's other things like monthly active users and revenue and profit and all that stuff. And Xbox and PlayStation are sort of doing different things, and it's not 100% about the console sales for Xbox as it might be for PlayStation. So, you know, they're both doing extremely well. So
a lot of publishers have been warning that they call it the pandemic bounce.
mm-hmm.
So like when the pandemic was in the full swing, everyone was stuck at home. Lots of people were playing games and spending money in microtransactions. Fortnite alone was a massive driver of that growth last year, but the pandemic bounce, quote unquote, as they call it, is now over. And some companies like King, mobile companies and whatever, they're seeing faster than expected drop off in profitability because people are, they're going outside again. What is that place outside?
It is it. Go outside and touch grass. I mean, Sony did announce in their earnings, which were like revenue-wise, I think the best ever for the company, and best ever in video game history or whatever. I mean, they made a ton of money. Yeah. They didn't make a lot of profit though, mainly because I think they were still selling the PS5, both PS5 versions for a loss, which ate up into a lot of their profits. But they did mention that PS Plus regressed. They lost about the numbers. They lost about 1.6 million users, subscribers to PS Plus.
That's probably pandemic related.
Well, that's what they said in comparison to the start of the pandemic, and they said they weren't worried about it, but they'll keep their eye on it for upcoming months. And then Nintendo gave their earnings, Jez, and 90 million Switches shipped. It was funny because like they're in comparison to the year before, I think they were down 20% or something. And even though they shipped 20 million Switches and they're making money hand over fist, the stock price like tanked like 9% that day. Because with investors, if you're not perpetually growing, there's a problem. And that's, you know what I mean? It's like, oh man, all these great reports in the stock, for their financials, and nope, investors don't like that because they only want to see growth, and there weren't growth. Something's wrong, right?
SpaghettiOs. Yeah. But as we all know, you can't have perpetual infinite growth, right?
No, that's true. Sergeant Rake says, just wanted to say happy Friday to you, gents. Been listening for years, and it's really cool to hear Jez speak positively about Halo for once. I'm with you there, Sergeant Mike. Like, I feel like I'm almost talking to an imposter right now. Last week, when Jez was not only talking positively about Halo, he's on Twitter tweeting about, I think it's time to admit 343 has nailed Halo and it's going to be back. But then in the same podcast, he was kind of talking smack about Nintendo. And I'm just like, who are you? Like, this is totally against what you normally are all about.
I mean, I'm not a massive Halo fan. Everyone knows, but you just can't deny it. It feels so damn good. It just feels so good, even against bots. It just felt really good. So
yeah. Oh man,
I'm impressed and looking forward to playing it. And since Overwatch is basically dead, I'm looking for a new arena shooter to jump on and play. Short bursts, and looks like Battlefield will probably be my main shooter, and then when I want a quicker game, maybe I'll jump on Halo. Who knows?
Battlefield 2042, yeah.
But if Big Team Battle is really good, maybe Halo will just be straight up my main shooter. I don't know.
I
gotta have those big epic battles, man.
You do. I would love it if Halo became your main game, because I would tease you nonstop for all the crap that you talked about Halo. I would definitely give you some flack about it. Geezer Prime says this is the Jez Corden show. Indeed, it is the Jez Corden show. My buddy One Bad Mother in Super Chat says, great show, Jez. You always have on a pretty good guest, too. See, look at this. Look at the meme you've started. Now, basically, it's your show, and I'm just the guest host. Paul says, here's what your new shrimp saying should be. Randall Thor, the man with a million mayo-covered shrimp. Flame says, the Xbox 2 plus 1, Jez and Miles with Rand. Jeez. And we're going to get Miles Dompier involved with this. Chio Walker says, who could be more famous in this industry than Jez? Just not possible. I mean, Jez is pretty famous. Trey Dukes says, acquisition season. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are getting acquired, but all I really care about is Xbox acquisitions, and I ain't seeing any. Where are they at, Special Nick? You promised Xbox acquisitions on the X&C podcast with Code Eastwood, and I don't see any. So what's going on? Space Dovikin says, maybe you're just talking to a Jez variant. It's certainly possible. Foreskin of Exodia, that name still gets me. I meant by game releases. Who has more releases coming out in 2022, Xbox or PS5? I mean, exclusive-wise? Okay, off the top of my head, Jez, Xbox has, in 2022, we know of Redfall and Starfield. Redfall, probably September time, I would imagine. They said August, but September is summer, right? So I think Redfall will be September.
Is September still?
Yeah, I mean, because summer starts June, so June 20, so yeah, July, August, September. I think fall starts September 21st. So like most of September is still summer. So Redfall's 2022. Starfield we know is November 11th, 2022. Presumably Forza Motorsport is 2022 if I would have to put a date on it. Grounded 1.0 will probably be next year. Am I missing anything, Jez?
Oh, not off the top of my head. I need to actually update our upcoming Xbox articles list.
Yeah.
Thanks for reminding me. I'm going to do that.
You need to do that. You need to do that. Because off the top of my head, maybe there's some smaller games. Maybe something like As Dusk Falls launches next year. From Global Publishing. And then PlayStation. Well, I mean, PlayStation delayed 3 of their games from this year to next year. So Horizon Forbidden West, which we all assume is delayed. Jason Schreier is hardly ever wrong. That got delayed. Gran Turismo 7 got delayed. And God of War got delayed. So that's 3 games. They also have like Final Fantasy 16, which might release next year. And Forspoken, that might release next year. And, who knows what else. But I think like when
Final Fantasy 14 Endwalker launches in November, Rand, just so you know.
Wait, what launches in November?
Final Fantasy 14 expansion.
Endwalker. Oh god, who cares about?
You're not gonna play?
I'm gonna talk to you in a minute about Final Fantasy 14. I got a question I want to ask you about it. Andy Hart says, "Good evening, Rand and Jez. Any news on Scorn? Is it still planned for this year, Jez? Any info about Scorn, or do you think we might find out about it next week?"
Well, yeah. So there is this Twitch Gaming Xbox showcase for indies next week. The last one was, pretty.
Well, say
bad.
That's one of the big topics of the show, Jez. Don't go into it so quickly. But yeah, we might find out about Scorn next week potentially. With what's going on there. Polaris Sucks says, Jez, did you happen to reach out to your Microsoft contact about broken Elder Scrolls on xCloud? I can't even log in or fast travel. Only game with any issues. Yeah. I have actually submitted that to Microsoft for a couple of people. I don't know what they're doing with it, if anything. So, if anyone at Microsoft's listened to this,
fix it. I might drop them an email or something as well, just so it's there. But I did try, because a couple of people messaged me about this. So like Elder Scrolls Online is completely broken on xCloud, and I think it might be something to do with the fact that the games on xCloud have to function differently to meet Google's requirements or something. So like, there might be something to do with that. It might be a more complicated thing to fix, but I don't know ultimately.
Right.
But I will try and get it fixed anyway.
Geezer Prime says, Jez liking Halo? I'm thinking imposter or creamy mayo clone. I know, right? It feels like I'm talking to a completely different person at this point. Point. Jacqueline Branch also becomes the newest member of the channel. Thank you for hitting that join button. Enjoy the emotes and everything, and supporting everything I do. And I haven't really even been releasing any videos. It feels like I've been on vacation, but I respect my audience. Like, I could make videos about stuff that happened weeks ago, but like, I don't think that's really respecting your audience when you're talking about things that happened a week and a half ago. So
that's why, Rand, you do opinion pieces.
Yeah, I know. I get opinion pieces. We give our opinions all the time on the podcast, so sometimes it's just tough to then also talk about the same opinion piece that you just talked about and then make it in video form.
I get you.
So
I get that.
Yeah, it can be a little. I don't know. I'm just kind of waiting for Microsoft to wake up from their post E3 slumber and give us actual stuff to talk about. But at least we got games to play. So like, I've been playing a lot. Flame says Jesus needs to put on a not a mimic sticky note. So I'm gonna shift to the games we played, as Furious George in the Super Chat says, Jez, did you get an invite to the Age of Empires 4 beta, which I believe is going on right now?
Yes, I did.
Ooh,
actually.
But isn't that under full NDA though? Right? That's under full NDA.
Yes, it is. So I don't think Microsoft. I didn't get in as press. I just got in a pure look, really. So there's that. I haven't tried it yet, but I can't talk about it anyway because it's under full NDA. But if any of you guys are in it and maybe want to jump on for a game, let me know.
Yeah. So if you want to play with Jez on Age of Empires 4, hit him up. The X Defiant beta, or whatever they're calling it, happened yesterday too. I don't know. Did you get into that? Because that's another one that's full NDA'd. No, I didn't even bother because I don't play on PC.
No interest whatsoever in that.
Yeah, neither do I. My buddies are somewhat more interested in it, the ones that are shooter orientated. And there's also a Battlefield 2042 one that's going to be going on next week. Did you get into that one?
Yes, I did.
Oh.
Again, not as pressed. And again, can't talk about it because it's full NDA. But
so we can play together then?
Yeah, potentially if you're in.
Oh, yes. Indeed, I might be. Jacqueline says, "Hey Jez, what are the chances of Neon Giant being picked up? Is Microsoft strictly looking for big teams, or are small teams still being looked at?"
I think like Microsoft, like they want teams that they think have massive potential. Neon Giant could fit that category a little bit, but I still honestly think they're immature and unproven to some degree. There was a lot of systemic issues with as gorgeous as the Ascent is as a game, it struggles towards the end a lot, in my opinion. The RPG layer is just really bad, and the weapons and skills are completely imbalanced. But obviously, like I wrote in my review, it's one of the most gorgeous games on the system right now. I can't get over how pretty it is. So I don't know if they'll buy Neon Giant on the basis that maybe their game hasn't been super successful, or maybe it will be successful. I don't know, but I don't know. We'll have to just wait and see, I guess. I mean, think Microsoft right now is looking for bigger fish, personally.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. Although I do think there is a lot of potential in Neon Giant. I thought the Ascent, if because they just patched the Ascent and they added, I don't know if you saw it, Jez, they added difficulty now. You can actually choose your difficulty, easy, normal, hard, and they fixed some of the issues. Yeah, first patch, and I think there's a second one coming. I actually finished the Ascent this past week. Did the main campaign, and I ran into a lot of glitches towards the end, and like Jess said, some of the side missions I couldn't get to work. And to top it off, when I actually beat the game, the achievement for beating the game didn't unlock because it's glitchy. And I'm like, isn't this just wonderful, right? So I finished that game. I think I put like 20 hours into it. I think it's a game worth playing when all the issues are ironed out. I think it's a fun twin-stick shooter in a really, really cool world that looks great. And I think there's potential for the studio, honestly. I think they could be a really good studio. I think they just try to do too much in this game. Like if they would have focused mostly on the world and the twin stick shooting and stuff, and less on like the RPG mechanics and loot and stuff, I think maybe would have came out better.
I definitely don't feel like it needed this RPG layer. Like it. I mean, it could have worked, but like it's like they wanted to make Diablo, and then there was no replayability, and then it was like, oh, okay, well we'll make something like more like a classic RPG, but then it was completely imbalanced. Like there's some skills that just don't scale with stats, which makes them useless. Whereas there are other abilities that do scale with stats. So it's like, why wouldn't I use the ability that gets more damage the better my gear gets?
Mm-hmm.
Which is like a cardinal mistake that in RPG type games where you have some abilities that scale with your level and some that don't. So like half the abilities are basically useless, and some of those abilities also animation lock you. So like you get stuck in a casting animation while enemies are beating on you, and they don't scale with ability, and they don't scale, and their damage doesn't scale. So why wouldn't you use the abilities that damage does scale and also don't animation lock you? Like that, a lot of that stuff needs polish, more testing. But I guess it's a case of them being a smaller studio. I don't think they have like the capacity to fully, go fully, balls to the wall with QA and testing and getting feedback and stuff like that. So I think it's a really great first, debut game from them because it's their first game. Yeah. I didn't want to seem too harsh towards it because again, it is a smaller game, but it was being marketed pretty heavily by Microsoft as like their, one of their exclusives for this month. So I did go pretty deep, hands-on with it. Like for my review, I think I wrote 3,000 words or whatever.
That's a big review. That's a hefty review.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's not a bad game. But I also think Microsoft wants bigger fish right now.
Yeah. Adam says early reports as the Ascent made $5 million off sales. Even for its flaws, it seems to be making a decent buck for the team at least. Yeah, that's actually a topic we'll get to about Xbox Game Pass successes and things they need to do better. But yeah, that is true. So I don't know. That's kind of another nail in the coffin for Xbox Game Pass kills sales of games. So we'll talk about that. Moving on to the other things that one of the things I wanted to say about the Ascent before moving on, to something else, was I don't like it in a game when they tell you the recommended level you have to be at. Like towards the later end of the game, it was like level 24 to do this, and I'm like, okay, I'm level 24, so I'm the recommended level. But then you're fighting enemies that are like 4 levels higher than you. I was just, I don't know. It's like I sort of feel like a recommended level, you should only be maybe fighting enemies that are 1 level ahead, at most 2. Like I was doing a level 25 mission and like level 30 dudes showed up. I'm like, how's this a level 25 mission if I'm fighting enemies 5 levels ahead of me? You know what I mean? I don't like that.
Stuff was weird.
I really don't like that in games, but that's just me.
Yeah, that's why I felt like the RPG mechanics were shoehorned in. I think if they just kept it a twin stick shooter without levels and stuff, it would have worked a lot better. If you just go to different areas and unlock new abilities. If they'd made it more like a Metroidvania, because it almost did feel like a Metroidvania-ish in some ways, because you like the cyber deck, you need the cyber deck to unlock certain doors to access certain side quests and stuff. I think if they'd made it a Metroidvania, it would have worked a lot better than if they'd done this like pseudo RPG thing. But I feel like there was like some conflict in the team where some of them were like, we should make it like a pure twin stick shooter, and others were like, nah, I want to make a super deep RPG, with all this lore and backstory and stuff, which is fine. But I think like the RPG layer definitely held the game back, and I'm a guy who kind of like loves RPG systems, so it's weird for me to ever say like this shouldn't have been an RPG, but I don't think it should have been an RPG. Should have been a Metroidvania, maybe, or at most. And that still gives you a sense of progression without trying to shoehorn levels into a game that is, it's not the biggest game in the world. But like when you're trying to like shoehorn levels into a game like this, you get into situations like you had, where you go into areas where mobs are too high level for you and stuff, because they've shoehorned this leveling system into the game when it's not really big enough for the amount of levels they wanted to put in it. But oh well, I'm sure they'll do a post-mortem on what worked and what didn't, and then if they do make a sequel, I'm sure it'd be more streamlined and better. But oh well, that's the Ascent.
Yeah, I played a little bit of Back for Blood with Colt yesterday. I know you're playing it right now.
Yeah, I'm playing it a little bit.
Give me some, early impressions, like live from Jez Corden as he plays Back for Blood while we're doing this podcast. How you feeling about the game?
Well, it's interesting. Like it definitely doesn't feel as good as Left 4 Dead, I don't think. Like the physics and the gore systems, like they're not as good as Left 4 Dead. It's kind of like it's a little bit, I don't want to say janky, because it does feel better than some of the competing games out there, maybe Vermintide or what's that other one called? I can't remember.
World War Z or something?
Nah, I was thinking of that one where you with demons in. I can't remember. It's by Tripwire Interactive. I can't remember the devs name.
Killing Floor?
Game. Yeah, Killing Floor. Like I enjoy Killing Floor, but it also feels super janky. Like, and this sort of also feels a bit janky, I feel like. But it's pretty fun. Like, I just sort of, but I'm not someone who's a massive fan of Left 4 Dead either, though. I felt like I played a few games and then just sort of like, man, this is repetitive now. I've seen everything the game has to offer. There's no point playing on, sort of thing. And I kind of felt like that about Evolve as well. Like I played Evolve a little bit and like just got sort of fed up with it. Like it was a Monster Hunter game without any of the dynamism of Monster Hunter.
Dynamism?
But dynamism.
Dynamism is? Are you trying to say? What is that supposed to be? Dynamic.
Dynamic. Yeah,
dynamism.
Dynamism. That is a word. I swear that's a word. I'm a professional writer. That should be a word.
Dynamism. I mean, maybe it is. You are the professional writer. I just thought it was a weird. You know how you say controversy when it's controversy. Is this new way of your dialect to say dynamic?
Dynamism. It's a word. I looked
Dynamism. It up. Okay. I trust you. Go ahead.
I'm a professional writer, man. I get paid to do this shit.
Okay.
Oh man, but I don't know. It's pretty good. I can't see it becoming like a cornerstone of my evenings, but yeah, it's not bad. I mean, what do you think of it?
I mean, it's Left 4 Dead 3, like clearly, like it basically was like, hey, let's go out there and make Left 4 Dead 3, but we need to do some changes because it's not 2006 anymore. So we need to add a progression system, which they've added. Right, they have the card system, so you're unlocking cards and trying to make it easier for yourself, but then also the computer making it harder because they have the corruption cards. You're getting supply points so you can unlock more things in between matches, right? So to me, when I was playing it, I just felt like it was an updated version of Left 4 Dead for the modern era. The games as a service, the live service era. Like when they look at Left 4 Dead and it's like, okay, well, Left 4 Dead only really has certain types of weapons. Like you got pistols, you got melee, but it's just, here's an assault rifle, here's a shotgun, right? But that may have worked for 2008. But for 2021, people expect more. So you have a slew of weapons. You know, you got your blues, you got your commons, you got your legendaries that you can pick up all these different type of weapons. But then you got attachments. You know, like a silencer or an extended mag or different types of scopes and stuff, right? So it's like, for me, it definitely just seemed like the goal of the whole like dev was make Left 4 Dead 3 and make it modern, so people have a reason to continue to replay it on harder difficulties, have a progression they can go through to unlock more cards, to play with their friends and stuff like that. And that was kind of my first thoughts. And I played through the first like Act 1, and I played through it with my buddy Cold Eastwood and two other people, like randoms that joined. And I mean, it's fun. If you enjoy Left 4 Dead, it's definitely that. Like a lot of different types of like bigger enemies, like the Crusher, and they got the Hunter, and they got the big Ogre and stuff. And I don't know, like it just kind of brought me back to like the Xbox 360 days, when you're just kind of playing the game and trying to survive, and one friend gets like left behind, and then everybody tries to go back to get him, but then the whole team wipes just because of one thing that went wrong. I will note it. I will say one of the things I noticed right away was that, I don't know if you noticed it, Jez, when you're playing it right now, right? Is that the aim assist is incredibly strong.
Yeah, I did just think that. I was like, oh my god, I'm trying to aim at this guy, and my gun's like snapping
it like
off.
Snaps. Yeah, it is so incredibly strong. I actually had to turn that down, especially coming off of playing like Halo Infinite, which when you delve into really doesn't have a lot of aim assist or even bullet magnetism. It just kind of was like snap, 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 and it's just like, wow, right? But I think Back 4 Blood is going to be one of those games that you just play a couple matches with your friends, maybe do a couple acts, and you kind of move on. So in that sense, I think it's like the perfect game for Xbox Game Pass. It's a game that can be infinitely replayable, right, due to the card system. It's in a genre that people really do like to play. I mean, Left 4 Dead is an all-time classic, the Left 4 Dead 1 and Left 4 Dead 2. It's kind of also going to be overshadowed by some of the other releases that are coming out around the same time, like Far Cry 6 and Battlefield 2042, Halo Infinites and the Call of Duties and stuff. So it seems like that perfect marriage, almost in the same way that Outriders was, where people looked at Outriders and weren't really too sure about that game, and then it came a Game Pass, and everybody kind of played it and really seemed to enjoyed it. Same thing for something like Back 4 Blood. It's co-op, right? So you have, one person in your friends group can download it and be like, I really want to play this, and someone else can subscribe to Game Pass to download it or just buy the game, right? It really, to me, really does seem like the perfect Game Pass game with the co-op and the infinite replayability. And I mean, I only played it for, I don't know, I think maybe an hour, and I am going to play the full game when it comes out, and I want to experience the story. And it would be one of those things where, someone like Lord Cognito's around who loves this game. If he wants to do a quick like run through of one of the acts on the hardest difficulties, I'll be down to. But it's not necessarily something that I'm probably going to be playing all the time. And I have seen people say, man, this game really makes me want to play Left 4 Dead. So I'm actually going to install Left 4 Dead and play it because it didn't give them the itch. But yeah, it's 100% Left 4 Dead 3, but modernized with current games as a service style things. Is that kind of right on the nose, Jez, you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think I don't think it launching up against some of the other games is a big problem, because as we've seen from Dead by Daylight, I think it's called.
Dead by Daylight.
Dead by Daylight.
Well, Dead by Daylight is incredibly popular, but I mean, it's also incredibly unique,
Yeah, I suppose so, but it's also like this could be unique too, considering like it is that Left 4 Dead legacy. Like I think a lot of the other games like Zombie Army 4 and you know, Vermintide and some of those other games, they were trying to carry Left 4 Dead's torch, but um didn't, or to some degree. And I think this could be the true success to Left 4 Dead that really draws people in and finds a stable player base and stuff like that. But I also feel like what this game's strength could be is in like licensed guest characters and stuff. Um, Dead by Daylight has done one of the big draws of Dead by Daylight is the licensed characters, like the fact that like Pyramid Head's in the game. That alone forced me to give it a go. If they put like Pyramid Head in this as like a uh, a a temporary boss character or whatever. Yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, it doesn't have to be like lore based or anything. Like just fun based. They can include like other sort of horror dudes in the game, famous horror villains as some of the special zombies to come in and kill you. I don't know, but maybe that's not what they want. I have no idea, but I do think like licensed content for service games is going to be something that happens more and more as time goes by. Like you've seen Fortnite do it to death. Smash Bros also has done it to death. Dead by Daylight's done it a ton, and I think this game would be ideal for that if it wants to like maintain interest and marketing and stuff like that. So as soon as you put like as soon as you put like a character like Jason or Freddy in it, everyone knows like, oh, this is a horror game. I like those movies. I might give it a try.
Right.
So I don't know. I think the game's definitely got potential. Just I guess it's about how it evolves. Hopefully, it doesn't evolve like Evolve.
Yeah, nobody wants Evolve. There's also some minor like things like you have to wait 3 minutes in between like loading up the next map or whatever before you can like buy things from the box with the money that you get. If everybody doesn't ready up in time, that can be a little bit annoying. Also, it sort of seems like ammo's going to be an issue, and it feels like they're kind of making it to the point where they want everybody to run separate weapons because ammo can be very, like, I guess it's because nobody really knows how to play the game and knows what to expect, so everybody takes, like, assault rifles. But there's only a certain amount of ammo spread across the map, and everybody kind of will open up a crate and there'll be ammo, but everybody just kind of picks up everything, right? And with the way the ammo situation is, it almost feels like they want you to have a team of 4, and then one person runs the assault rifle, one person runs the sniper, one person runs the shotgun, and one person runs an SMG, so you don't run into, like, multiple people needing assault rifle. Because you can only carry, like, you have 2 weapons, but one is always either your melee or your pistol, and so you can't carry 2 primaries. And I had some of that issue when we were playing where I just couldn't find any ammo, and it was just like, hello, I need ammo for my gun. But then it seemed we were all using assault rifles. So it seems like they might sort of be going down that path where it's like they each character needs to be using a different weapon so ammo doesn't become an issue. And maybe that's how it's going to be in harder level or, like tougher competition when you play on the harder difficulties. But I mean, I don't know. I think the game looks good. Best thing about it, 60 frames. And I got to say, once again, I got to reiterate this. It's the best thing about next gen. Everything is 60 frames. And it's like you play this and you just remember what it was like to play Left 4 Dead at 30. And it's just incredible. It's just exactly what I wanted from next gen. Was basically the standard 60 frames, and we're even getting a lot of games that are 120 frames. And thankfully, I have a TV that supports 120 frames. Like, frame rate is king, and I am so glad that I basically don't have. It's like I don't have to worry about frame rate anymore because most of the games that come out are 60 frames. Like Ascent, 60 frames. Back 4 Blood, 60 frames. Halo, 60 frames. Like everything I put in my system is 60 frames, and it feels incredible. I think the only game I've played so far this generation, this Xbox Series X generation, is the Medium, which was 30 frames, and they say they really couldn't do 60 because they were rendering 2 worlds at a time. And it's just like in stark contrast to before we got the Series X, when you were going on your filmic 30 frames per second bullshit, right? And you were being serious about it, about how you'd
That
rather have
wasn't that
30.
serious.
You were being serious, Chad. He was being serious, right? We even made a freaking emote about it.
I just said I didn't mind. What I said was, I would if I had to choose for a single player game, 4K or 60 frames, I choose 4K over 1080p. That's all I said, and I stand by that.
Could you
In a
imagine
single player
playing
game.
Ascent at 30 frames though?
Yeah, but it's not a single player game. It's not a story driven game, is it?
I mean,
The medium was.
yeah.
But
I mean,
I don't know. I digress.
true, but
Having said all that, like I have had an Xbox Series S the past couple of months in Germany, and I didn't have a Series X because I couldn't find one. And for the most part, the Series S was fine. I was playing like next gen enhanced games. It was all good. But then I played Chivalry 2, which hadn't at the time. It is now 60 frames per second on the Series S, but at the time it was only 30 frames. And I was like, man, I really need the guarantee of 60 frames per second this gen. Like, I can't go back to 30 frames in multiplayer games. I just can't do it. So, thankfully, the kind person on Twitter offered to sell me a Series X, and managed to get one. And but then after I bought it, I realized that Chivalry had been boosted to 60 frames. So can't win them all. But yeah, 60 frames. It's nice to have the promise of 60 frames, at least for multiplayer. Don't care about it so much for single player, and I'll stand by that.
I mean,
I'd rather have like the most gorgeous, complicated visuals possible in a single player game.
see, that's for me, because I want 60 frames no matter what. I don't care if it's single player. I don't care if it's multiplayer. Like, I played Spider-Man Miles Morales on the PS5 and, Ratchet and Clank, and they both have 4K, super 4K 30 modes, and they don't feel good to play after you put it on performance mode at 60 frames. But that's just me. I know other people out there are like, you know what? I want like all the bells and whistles. I want the game to look as best as it can. But if I had to pick out like, so far, what are we, 10 months into this generation? The best thing about it is the focus on higher frame rates. And I sort of feel bad for people still on the PS4 and Xbox One. Like, we're playing Halo Infinite at 120 frames, 60 frames, 4K or whatever it is on Series X. And, our fellow Xbox brethren, Jez, who aren't as fortunate as, us, or weren't able to get a Series X because they're constantly sold out, they're playing, on the 1S and 1X at 30 frames. I mean, you can make an argument that's a disadvantage. If you're playing an Xbox One X and you're playing at 30 frames and you come across someone on Series X who's playing the game at 120 frames, that's a disadvantage, right?
Yep. A little bit.
A little bit, yeah. And the Ascent was 30 frames on Xbox One. It was just like, it doesn't really seem like that, the whole, oh man, like cross-gen's going to really hold back development. It's like, I don't know, it doesn't really seem like it. Like, I mean, I know Halo Infinite is an Xbox One game, but they're doing everything they can to make sure that the Series X and Series S are dramatically better than their last-gen counterparts. So,
well, I reviewed the Ascent on the Series S, and it ran great. Like, there was no performance degradation, even when there was like, I think like I saw a bit of a frame rate drop in the club scene, but there's like 100 NPCs on screen in that scene, and I actually, interestingly, got a bug I've never seen on Xbox before. My Xbox came up with a warning message saying your video card has run out of memory.
oh jeez,
I've never seen that bug before, but like, I had this skill equipped that spawns tentacles out of the ground. Did you find that one?
Yes, I did. I did have that one. Yeah.
And I used that in the club with the tentacles, and it just caused complete mayhem. And I think like I overloaded the video card, so like that might be like something they need to look at there. But for the most part, it ran perfectly well on the Series S. When a game's like natively built for the next gen consoles or current gen consoles, quote unquote, it runs really great, and the Series S is definitely not holding anything back.
Yeah.
So
Shout out to my guy Punkadish, who says best damn Xbox podcast hands down. Wish I could listen live more, but I always catch the replay. Listening live is rare for me. Thank you for all the support, Punk. And anybody that says we're their favorite podcast, that's always makes me and Jez extremely happy. But there are so many great Xbox podcasts out there. If you guys want, let us know who are some of your favorite Xbox podcasts in the chat. Whether it's RDX or whether it's Xbox Chatter Days with Miles Don PA on Windows Central Gaming, or perhaps Xbox Ultimate on Fun Speculations channel, or Mavs channel. There are so many great Xbox podcasts. Mr. Boomstick, he puts on 4 shows a week. We're just excited that people enjoy the show, and we are some people's favorites. I wouldn't say we're the best, but there's I got my favorites. I think my favorite podcast I listen to is Iron Lord's podcast. Also enjoy listening to XCast every single week. So there's some great Xbox focused podcasts out there with some really great people that run it. What do you think, Jez? Any podcasts stand out for you? I know you're always looking for like suggestions and you write articles about it, but I'm
a big fan of Gamer Tag Radio.
Mm-hmm.
And I also really like Iron Lords. Iron Lords is just so funny. Those guys have such great chemistry. So, but I don't listen to many, to be honest. But it's just Iron Lords and Gamer Tag are the ones that I try to catch.
Dan Becker says, find a quote of Phil saying Game Pass is profitable. I'm pretty sure he said that. I'd have to actually search for it, but I'm pretty sure
he tells people to do the math. He says, do the math.
Yeah. Do the math. My guy, Gaming Forte, host of the DPS podcast with Slow-Mo, he says, hope you're having a great week. I always say 1440p, 60 frames should be the standard. Try to tell people your life will change once you see more frames. I'm with you, man. 60 frames all the way. Punkadish also says frame rate is king. We all agree on that. I'm all about the frame rate. Can't get enough of it. Yeah, let's see. Everybody's giving out their favorite podcasts to listen to. X&C, RDX, Boom. Yeah, there's a lot of great podcasts out there. So you're always covered. If you don't like, I've actually heard people that say they won't say it to my face. I always hear it from people who like that, but they don't like Xbox 2 because it's just me and you. They want more people in it, or they don't like it because they don't like me, or they don't like it because they don't like you. I'm like, how could you not like Jez? I understand not liking me. I'm an asshole, but how could you not like Jez Corden? You know what I mean?
Indeed.
Yeah, even you don't like me.
Don't be silly.
Let's see here. What we got here? All right. Final Fantasy 14, Jez. I know you've been playing it. You're addicted to it. You're playing it all the time. My buddy James Shields is playing it all the time as well. My buddy Gopher's getting into it, and he's addicted to it. And everybody that seems to play it, it's like, oh my god, it's so great. It's starting to get, it is really big, really huge, right?
20 million players, supposedly.
20 million players, right? It's growing bigger and bigger and bigger. So I guess my question to you, since this is an Xbox-focused podcast, is it a problem or a mistake that it's not on Xbox yet? And will it ever come to Xbox? It seems like the popularity spike has done a lot for the game, and it's kind of one of those things like where Persona is not on Xbox, and it's just like, is Xbox missing out by not having Final Fantasy 14 on the system?
Yeah, it's weird, man. It's weird that Phil basically said that the game was coming, and then we heard nothing for ages. It is so strange the way this has all gone down, and I think I've said before, I think it's something to do with the way Xbox requires certification for updates, whereas like Square Enix is saying like, we can't certify updates because we just want to push them from our servers. We don't want to give the update to Xbox and then have Xbox approve it and then push the update, because Sony and obviously PC, they can just push the update without their direct approval, But Microsoft's very sort of controlling over what goes through their systems and stuff like that for security purposes or whatever. I don't know, but those kind of policies are what prevent some games from hitting Xbox. These sort of live service games that sort of designed PC first, I guess. Um, but the thing is, Final Fantasy 11 had this thing, that whole thing as well, where it had like simultaneous updates across all the platforms, and it had crossplay, but it was on the Xbox 360. So, because Final Fantasy 11 was an MMO as well, and it was one of the only games you could play entirely with a keyboard. By the way, it's very strange. But Microsoft made an exception for that game, but they haven't made an exception for Final Fantasy 14. So I don't know if it's just like the system doesn't support it and they need to update it or something, or there's some other sort of stuff going on. But yeah, I think it's a big miss that they don't have Final Fantasy 14. It's the best console-based MMO by a mile. It's like, I think Elder Scrolls Online is super janky and horrible to play. Like, no offense if you like it, but I can't play that game. It's so janky. And some of the other games like Neverwinter also have this sort of air of jank about them. But Final Fantasy 14 is like so polished and there's so much to it. There's so much content, and it has like full controller support because obviously it's on PlayStation. So it's man, I don't know. I suppose it is sort of a bit of a miss for Microsoft that it's not on their platform, because it is blowing up and it is a trending game, and you know there is a lot of people who've ditched World of Warcraft and moved across to it. Lots of big influencers have as well, but Square Enix and Microsoft seem to have a really complicated relationship.
Yeah, they sure do, don't they?
Yeah, we don't have Final Fantasy 7 remake. We're not getting Final Fantasy 16. Like, what the hell? Like, for a time it was like this back in the day, where the Xbox 360 didn't get Final Fantasy games either. They were like considered to be PlayStation exclusives. I remember when Final Fantasy 13 was announced for Xbox, it was like a big deal. It's a bit of a shame the game sucked, but what can you do? And I think Final Fantasy 13 Versus, back when Final Fantasy 15 was called Final Fantasy 13 Versus or whatever it was called, wasn't that also announced for Xbox back then? And that was a whole thing. I could be wrong about that.
Which
Maybe
game?
I'm misremembering. When Final Fantasy 15 announced, it was called Final Fantasy Versus 13.
Versus 13. Yeah, I believe it was.
That was announced for Xbox, right? I think.
I think so.
But I can't fully remember. But now, after Final Fantasy 13 and Final Fantasy 15 and a bunch of backwards compatible Final Fantasy games, Square Enix has started, moving away from Xbox a little bit, at least the Japanese side of things. Like, they had the whole Outriders deal, which, Microsoft spent a lot of money on. But, their headline act, which has long been Final Fantasy, has ditched Xbox and the Xbox community, which kind of sucks. But I guess it's like, money talks at the end of the day, and Sony must be paying a lot for that stuff. It's, in some ways pretty important, for Sony's fan base to like have Final Fantasy, because Final Fantasy has long been, associated with the PlayStation brand, maybe since like Final Fantasy 7 onwards, really. Because obviously Final Fantasy 7 didn't come to Nintendo's platform originally. And then you had 7, 8, 9, and 10 and 12 all on PlayStation, I guess. But what that means for the future, I don't know. I think I know from speaking to people at Microsoft that they're a bit frustrated about the whole Square Enix thing. So they probably are working on it. But there's probably there's issues beyond money with regards to Final Fantasy 14. It goes back to the content delivery policies, I think. And but we've heard Microsoft are trying to fix those. So
yeah,
we'll just have to wait and see what Windows 11 brings. Because a lot of this hinges on Windows 11. With Windows 11, they're throwing out a lot of the old backend. They're revamping the store from the reverse side and stuff. So
it just it seems weird it's taking so long, considering like Phil talked about it at like XO, what was it, 2019, and then nothing happened, and now the game's like blown up, and it's just like, man, that'd be a good game for Xbox to have, but it's like a de facto PS5 exclusive console-wise. Obviously, it's on PC, and that's probably where the biggest fan base is for it. But I don't know. That's kind of what I wanted to ask you about Final Fantasy 14. It does seem like everybody who plays it in MMOs like loves it. So,
it's really slow to start. Like everyone says this. Like the first literally about 100 hours are really slow. Oh man, but it's like the vanilla game that came out several years ago, and like was like low budget, and because when Final Fantasy 14 first came out, it was completely broken. It was like terrible. It was a complete failure and a flop. I don't know if you remember this, Ryan.
Yeah, I
But
remember.
it was like a big failure. Square Enix, rather than abandon the game, they invested a mountain of cash to rebuild the game and called it Realm Reborn. So like they rebuilt the whole game, made it more World of Warcraft like, I guess, in structure, but then built a lot of cool stuff on top of it, like sort of fixed the story and had this whole like, you know, literally blew up the world and moved the story on and stuff. And that part of the game feels like a big slog to get through, but once you are through that, like it culminates in this sort of Game of Thrones-esque, you know, climax, and I was just not expecting it to go the direction it did. It got really dark really quick. There's tons of cutscenes. Like I think the final cutscenes of Realm Reborn are like 40 minutes long. Like a 40-minute long cutscene in an MMO is just something that you just don't expect.
That sounds like the
So
Kojima cutscene. You
yeah, it
know?
does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You can't skip them, unlike some of Kojima's cutscenes, but you couldn't skip Metal Gear Solid 4's cutscenes if I remember right. I don't think you could. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I don't know. But anyway, but yeah, the story was great. Like I really loved it, and like forcing myself to get through that boring part, I'm so glad I did, because it really blew the game up, and you know, just amazed me with how much more consistent the story is versus World of Warcraft, which has like almost no investment. I really, after playing Final Fantasy 14, it does feel like Blizzard is running on a shoestring budget right now. Like
Mm.
like Final Fantasy 14 has so much voice acting in it, so much cutscenes, so much cinematic artwork, so much like unique stuff in their story delivery. And World of Warcraft, like their expansions have like maybe like 5 cutscenes in it. Like and it's like Blizzard's bragging about these massive profits, and you just realize that those profits are not going back into the game. They're going straight into Bobby Kotick's pocket. So I'm done with Blizzard games after playing Final Fantasy 14, realizing like what actually happens when the money gets reinvested into the game rather than reinvested into Bobby Kotick's yacht fund. So I'm done with World of Warcraft after playing this. It sort of broke my Stockholm syndrome with that game.
Yeah, definitely. Like I saw you playing Final Fantasy when I hopped on, and usually you're never on when I get on. And I'm like, oh, Jez is on. Let me send him a party invite so we can talk, because you're never on. And you're playing Final Fantasy 14, and you're like, bruh, it's too late. I'm like, yeah, but you're up at 5 a.m. playing Final Fantasy 14. Why don't you come talk to me in code? You're like, it's too late, bro. I'm like, oh, okay, Jez, but it's not too late to be playing the game though. Okay. I hear you.
I mean, it was too late for it was too late to take a call because my girlfriend was asleep. But man, I was just up all night grinding botany, man. Like I wasn't even fighting monsters. I was grinding herbs, cutting down trees, and making potions. Like that's what you do in MMOs, man. You grind, and
that's the part
nice.
nobody wants to hear about. So moving on. Jennifer Lundberg says, "Hey Jez and Chop Liver Thor, a guy last week was asking about a Heroes of Might and Magic clone. Song of Conquest is the game he's looking for. Yeah, I remember that from last week. Hopefully he's listening. Song of Conquest is the game you might be interested in." And Space Dovakin says, Xbox 2 RDX XNC Double Barrel and Xbox Chatter Days are his favorite shows. So that's amazing. So there's another game I played that I wanted to talk about, a little bit, and that is Omno. You hear about this game? Anybody in chat hear about Omno, Jez?
Omno?
Omno. So Omno is a game that came out, I think, like the week of the Ascent. It is made by one person, and when legit, like when you say, oh, it's made by, one person or two people, it's kind of really not. Like the Ascent, you say it was made by 12 people, but they have like support studios, right, working on it.
Yeah.
And even like Death's Door, I think was like 5 people. This is like legit one person. Like one person made the whole game, and one person did the music, and it's all essentially just like it's just him. Like he made it by himself, and so it's in Game Pass if you want to try it out. I recommend it. I actually really liked it. It is one of those type of experiences like Journey or Abzu, where it's more about just kind of doing like exploring the world. There's no combat. There's really no death state. It's just a chill game to just play when you just don't want to be like, you don't want to play COD or you don't want to play something more involved. Like it's just nice little puzzle adventure game that I really enjoyed for like 3 or 4 hours. And there a bunch of people in chat said they played it and they know what it is. It's a really cool game, Jez. So you honestly haven't seen anything about it? Like I got gameplay of it up on right now. I think it looks great.
Nah, I haven't. I've been heads down, man. Grinding
Heads
botany,
down.
like I say.
That's why you need to play different stuff. That's why you need to play different
See,
things.
This is the problem with MMOs, man. Like in my 20s, when I was addicted to World of Warcraft, like I didn't play any of the games for years, and I missed out on loads of great stuff. So I'm gonna try not to let that happen with Final Fantasy 14, and frankly, I can't because of work. Like I have to play the games every now and then. But man, it's just so good. I will check out your game. I'll check out your game. What's it called again? Omno.
Omno. It's on Game Pass. It's like a 3-hour experience. It's like basically you're due on a pilgrimage to seek out the light, and there's a whole bunch of different levels, right? You go to one level, and the whole the basic loop is you get into a level, and you have to find 3 of these lights to open up the end section to then move on to the next level. And that's really all there is. It's just you need to find 3 of these like light balls. And there's always more than 3 in a level. There's like 5 or 6. And so you can find the 3 and just move on and kind of beat the game faster. But, the game kind of does suggest you 100% everything, which is find all the different light balls, find all the different kind of creatures that are around, or find the collectibles to 100% a level before moving on. And as the game, progresses, it becomes a little bit, the puzzles become a little bit more involved. Like in the beginning, it's pretty easy, just jumping around. But then eventually you get a dash move that you can do in the air to bridge gaps. You get a move where you can kind of like ride on your staff. You get a move where you can kind of teleport across distances and kind of float. And they start combining those moves into kind of more complex puzzles that use all those different things. And I don't know, I thought it was a very enjoyable, super chill game where it's almost as like how much you put in is how much you're going to get out. Like if you want to go after the 100%, or if you just want to like get through it quickly and just get the 3 and move on. But, for a game made by one person, I think it's pretty damn good. I enjoyed my time with it. It's an easy 1,000 gamer score if you're into, that sort of thing. I think the art style is really cool. And it's one of those games that, nobody would really be talking about because so many games come out every single week on Xbox, on PlayStation, on Nintendo Switch, and PC. And this is kind of where Game Pass shines, where it's like you check it out and you enjoy it. And here we have a whole bunch of people in chat talking about their experience about Omno, when more than likely, most people probably wouldn't have played this. So I really recommend it to everybody out there looking for a Journey Abzu type experience where they just want to chill for a night, play a cute little indie game, and solve some puzzles. Some of the stuff towards the end actually get really cool when you're combining the teleportation with the dash and the kind of the last ability where you float and you kind of do more complex things. I don't know. I thought it was a really cool game, so I definitely recommend it if anybody's looking for a nice chill experience. But yeah, so that's kind of what I played this week. Back for Blood, finished the Ascent, doing Omno. Now I need to kind of figure out what's next because we got Hades coming out next week, and I am really looking forward to playing that. The Xbox Game Pass Ultimate sale is on, and I ended up buying. I think you might like this, Jez. I had $20 in reward points, right? So I ended up buying Judgment, and this is probably, hopefully, Neo Game Spark listens to this later, because I know he's a big Yakuza fan. Judgment's the spin-off series. And I've been kind of wanting to play Judgment before Lost Judgment comes out, so I was like, you know what, for $5 I'll buy it, right? And then I noticed that there was a 4,000 reward points. You know, Microsoft does the reward points thing, where if you spend a certain amount of money, you get a certain amount back. And it was, hey, if you spend $40 on content in the Ultimate Game Sale, then you get 4,000 points back. And I'm always looking to get points back because I buy games on Xbox all the time. And so I needed $13 to reach 40. And I decided to buy Kingdom Hearts 1.5 and 2.5 because it was like $13 and was exactly the amount of money I needed to hit the 4,000. And I said this to Lord Cognito because I told him this, and he was like, I didn't know you're a Kingdom Hearts fan. I'm like, yeah, you know, back in the day, I loved Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. And this, I guess the question I'm going to ask you is, have you bought a game strictly for nostalgic purposes, knowing that you'll never play the game, but just because you want the comfort of like owning it? Because I have no intentions of playing.
I did that with all the Final Fantasy remakes.
Right.
That's why like I bought Final Fantasy 7 remake, the 8 HD version, 9 and all that stuff. And I'm super salty that those pixel remakes are Android only because I don't want to play that crap on my phone. But then again, I don't even have time to play them at all. So what am I talking about, you know? So yeah, I do buy games for nostalgia. I definitely do.
So it was just one of those things where I bought Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 strictly for nostalgic purposes, and I have like no intention of ever playing them again. And I just wanted to own them. And I was kind of wondering if you did it, or if anybody in chat, let us know. Is there a game that you bought recently or any point in time where you know when you bought it, I'm not playing this game. I'll never play this game because I've already played it, but I just want the satisfaction of having it in my game collection, whether it's a physical disc or a digital copy. And yeah, it was just like, you know what, $13 to own Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, not that bad. So yeah, shout out to Lady Foxfire. How's it going, Fox? She says, yeah, I loved it. Played it on Game Pass, found out the dev was following me on Twitter, and I did an indie spotlight on your channel talking about Omno. Yeah, it's a really cool game. Made by one person. I highly recommend everybody check it out. I mean, it may not be for everybody because not every game's for every person. Like Microsoft Flight Sim is not for me, as I found out, but it definitely is for other people. I've seen some people on Twitter really enjoy that game, but for me, didn't really care for it. But just because I didn't like it doesn't mean other people won't. So same thing for this. This might be a game you had no idea existed, but because of Game Pass and us talking about it, you might check it out and might actually really enjoy it. And Flame says, what everybody should play is Dreamscaper on PC and Switch, a new roguelite made by a small team of ex-AAA developers. Please support them. The game is great. Have you heard of Dreamscaper, Jez?
No, I have not.
Neither have I.
What is that one?
I don't know. I think maybe when it comes to like PC, like if a game's PC and Switch or Switch only, I tend to like overlook it because I don't play on PC, even though I have a decent PC, and I don't have I have a Switch, but it's not hooked up. So if a game's like Switch PC only, for the most part, I'm just like, it just kind of doesn't exist to me. So I've never actually heard of Dreamscaper, but I'll definitely check out the trailer for it and see what it's about. And Italian Clowns, my buddy, he says, Randall Chicago. Yes, I've purchased Skyrim over and over and over again on every system. He calls me Randall Chicago. He used to call me Randall Capone when we used to do Crossfire with Mooch every Friday. I used to do Mooch's show every single week back in the day. And Clowns was on the panel, and he would call me Randall Capone because I'm from Chicago. So his game is Skyrim. Sergeant Rake's game is Shadow of the Colossus that he's bought a bunch. Trying to see what else people are saying here. BioShock for Brandon. Kenny says Red Dead Redemption and Dying Light. Or maybe that's what he's bought from the digital sale. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Eat the Rich says no Breath of the Wild, Rand. No, I have not played Breath of the Wild. It's a game I probably should play though. I've had a lot of people push me to play it, but I just never kind of gotten around to it. Although I could always hook my Switch back up. So yeah, I guess we'll talk about some of the topics that happened this week, Jez, although there wasn't really a lot. So if you guys are enjoying the show, make sure you hit the like button and share this out on Twitter, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. Thank you for tuning in on Friday, even though there's not a lot of amazing things to talk about. You know, I mean, hell, we talked an hour and 10 minutes about Final Fantasy 14, Omno, and the Ascent, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So, you know, people, it's kind of amazing that people care. So let's start with the small one, Jez. And it's funny because, you know, I always make the topics every week. Or I just kind of type something in our Discord just to, you know, refresh my memory. And you saw this, was like, who cares about the new Xbox controller? But before we get to that, X the Gamer says, hey, how do I stream xCloud on Android straight from the cloud? As I installed the Game Pass app and it says they are moving to the Xbox app, but I can't find it. It only allows console stream. Jez, you've done streaming from xCloud. Can you help X the Gamer out? Because I have not tried xCloud, so I have no clue how that works.
Man, I don't know. I haven't got that message that you talk about. They're moving the Game Pass app to the Xbox app?
See, I think he has the Xbox Game Pass app. I think he... You know what?
So do I.
Right, but don't you need the Xbox streaming app to actually stream from xCloud? Aren't they two separate apps?
No.
So you can stream right from the Xbox Game Pass app on your phone.
Yeah, you're meant to stream from the Xbox Game Pass app on your phone, and if you want to do console streaming, then you stream from the Xbox app. I have not heard that they're getting rid of the Game Pass app. That's news to me.
So I'm on the Game Pass app. Where do you go to stream? On here, I don't see anything.
Cloud. Select cloud.
From where? Like where? All I see is console.
You
PC.
got an up to date.
Yeah, this is as up to date as I don't see any way to stream anything on here. Are you sure? Are you? I'm almost positive that this is the wrong app.
Mine has cloud and PC. Do you not have Game Pass Ultimate?
Oh, here's the thing.
You signed in.
I'm on iPhone. So is it different?
Okay. Well, if you're on iPhone, you have to use xbox.com/play.
So I'd have to open up a like Chrome or something.
A web browser, yeah. Yeah, so that's different. But if you're on Android, you should just be able to go to console and stream. So I don't know.
Yeah, so I guess it depends on what.
Hit me up on Twitter. Hit me up on Twitter, and I'll sort it out. Whoever had that issue.
X the Gamer, hit up Jez on Twitter. He'll help you out because I haven't used it. And like I said, I have an iPhone, and I just remembered. Yeah, you can't. Because Apple's require. What was the requirement? They wanted every game to be submitted individually or something like that.
Yeah, every game needs to be a separate entity on the Apple Store or whatever they call it.
Yeah. So, anyways, back to the new Xbox controller. What do you think about the Aqua Shift, Jez? Cool name, cool controller. I mean, do you have any thoughts on it? I mean, this is how bad some of the news is, folks. So we'll get into the bigger stuff. Make sure you hit the like button. We're talking about Xbox controllers. James, I know you're liking this. I actually pre-ordered this controller, Jez. Tell me what you think.
I don't like blue.
Oh, you don't like blue? Oh man.
Nah, blue's lame. I don't really care. I don't care. Okay. Meh. Rand. A big meh for me.
Jeez. You know, we're gonna need you to elaborate more than just a big meh on a one sentence thing. We're doing a live podcast here with a bunch of people, Jez. Can't just
I'm bored of controllers, man.
You're bored of controllers. Okay.
I'm bored of them.
What do you think about how? See, the thing that got me was I like the color blue. I bought the blue controller, the Sonic blue controller at launch. However, I usually go through a controller a year. I play so much that I wear out the sticks or one of the buttons stops really kind of getting Like for me, like the Xbox Nexus button, I believe as they call it, doesn't always work when I press it in, and I think the B button's sort of not responding right as well as the right bumper. So I needed a new controller. And then this one was announced, and they brought back one of my favorite features from the Elite Series 2 into the regular controller, which is the rubberized grips. So I was like, oh, that's cool. This one's got the rubberized grips, which are great. And then it also has the blue swirls within the grips that are going to be unique to each controller. Like each controller the swirls aren't going to be the same for each controller. They're actually individually unique. Of course, if that's assuming I read the press release correctly. So, I actually bought that. Anybody in chat going to be purchasing the Xbox Aqua Shift controller when it releases on August 31st for $70 freaking dollars or whatever it is? So it's pretty expensive. Pretty expensive. But, you know, I definitely need a new controller, so, you know, that's what we're into here. You mentioned this earlier, Jez, about Xbox Series S, and you've been playing on it. And before we get to that, Wolf Assassin has a question for you. He says in Super Chat, does Jez know how many subs Game Pass has now? Yeah, can you update us, Jez? You mentioned last week, we talked about Jeff Grubb saying that the reason they didn't give an update is because, you know, you said 23, but it may be at 23. Can you give us an insight? Maybe a guess? Like, what do you think it's at right now? Maybe if you don't know.
Well, I did walk that 23 back.
You did.
Like right after.
You sure did.
So Nick said 22, and then I got mixed up with another number and said, oh no, it's 23 now. But that 23 was related to a different thing. So that was incorrect. So the real number, I have no idea. I think it could be around 20 million if I had to guess. I don't think that 22 million figure was accurate either. I think that was wrong too. So I think it could be around 20 million at the moment. But that's just a pure guess. I have no information other than I think the 23 and the 22 figure was wrong.
So you don't think it was that high?
I don't think it was that high, no. But I could be wrong about that. It could be higher. You know, I have no information right now on that. My 23 figure was wrong. That was a mistake. Oh well.
I think Xbox and Microsoft are done announcing numbers for Game Pass unless they hit a significant milestone, whether it's 25 million or 30 million. And hell, they may not even announce 25 million. They may not even announce anything until they hit 30. They announced 10 back in April of last year and 18 in December. And I think they're going to be quiet until they reach a significant one. And I kind of agree with you that I know everybody thought it's at 23 million back in April because, you know, of what you tweeted. And everybody has this notion that somehow Game Pass is going to grow like 1 million subscribers a month until the end of time, right?
Yeah.
And that it should be at basically 25 million right now. But I don't think it is. I think it's, like you said, I think it's closer to 20 than it is 25. Mainly because I thought the first 6 months of Game Pass were weak. Outside of a really strong April, where they had Outriders MLB The Show, most of the other months weren't spectacular because there weren't a lot of games launching in the service that are new. And I think that's when Xbox Game Pass grows. It's when they start having these day one games hit the service, because a lot of people look at it and be like, well, I could buy Hades for $25, or I can just subscribe for $1 or $10. And there weren't that many outside of that month of April and the Bethesda games in March. So I think the service, even though they talked about it and, Satya said the service grew, which would be true because, okay, it was at 18 in December. So I would imagine it did grow, but I don't think it grew as fast as it was growing, simply because I don't think the catalog was putting out anything spectacular. But right now, when you have Microsoft Flight Sim, and you have Ascent, and you have Hades coming up, and you have Art of Rally, and you have 12 Minutes, and you have Psychonauts 2, right? And you have, Back for Blood, and you have Halo, and you have Forza launching at the end of the year, and all these other games that will be announced soon, I think that's when it's going to grow, is when you have these new games. I think the catalog of
Yeah.
the older titles are kind of just there to keep people satiated, but it's the new games that I think really drive new subscriptions. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but that's kind of the way I viewed it. I don't know.
No, I think you're right. I think also like the fact that the fact that we've got like summer and people are enjoying going outside again, festivals and all sorts of outside things. Kids might actually be going outside and experiencing nature and trees and all that lovely stuff. And instead of playing games after being stuck inside for a while, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some kind of like mini backlash against staying indoors after all this stuff. I mean, as an introvert, I've loved it. And my lifestyle didn't change a bit during the pandemic because I don't like going outside, Rand. But a lot of people do like going outside. And as such, I do expect there to be a sort of contraction in services like this. Um, you know, but like you say, when we get close to winter in the northern hemisphere and people start staying indoors again and all the games come out, and there's going to be perks for having Xbox Game Pass with Halo Infinite multiplayer, like skins or something like that. They do it all the time for Smite and stuff like that. Even though the multiplayer itself is free, they're going to do some kind of perk system for someone who's got Xbox Game Pass, I think. So we'll probably see Game Pass numbers like go back up again in the autumn and winter, like you say, more games to play. People getting stuff for Christmas and birthdays and Black Fridays coming up. God, heaven forbid. And Xbox Game Pass time codes are a popular gift to buy for people at Christmas. So, yeah, I do think it'll go up then.
Yeah. But I think we got off on a tangent there. I wanted to talk about your article about Series S that you've kind of, I wouldn't say you've come around a little bit about it, but you think it has far bigger potential than what a lot of people maybe were giving it, doubting it earlier in the gen, like considering you've been using it a lot recently. Have your perspective of the Series S shifted after actually using it for a while?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I always thought it was like a cool idea, especially given the chip shortage and the fact that it's easier to get the silicon for the Series S. Seemed like a good idea. But one of the issues we had at launch was that there was literally no games to review for it. There was like nothing enhanced for the Series S, or almost nothing. And oftentimes the games would perform better. Sorry.
Oh, someone's getting tired.
Man, I'm sleepy. Yeah, I'm really tired today. I'm sorry, guys. A lot of the games we had to play were backwards compatible, and obviously the backwards compatible version are the Series S versions of the games, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like I tried to play Final Fantasy 15 on the Series S recently, and it was just hideous, man. It was just hideous. I was like, oh my god, these jaggies! I'm gonna cut myself on these jaggies, man. So I put that away, and but then I started to realize, like, because like I said earlier, Chivalry got 60 frames per second on the Series S just after I'd cut a deal for a Series X, and I was like, man, as time goes on, the Series S is only going to increase in value. Like, more and more games are going to be enhanced natively for the Series S. More and more games are going to ditch the Xbox One entirely. I think EA has said Dead Space, for example, is not coming to the Xbox One. It's not coming to the PS4. It's next gen only. And I wouldn't be surprised if next year Call of Duty and maybe Battlefield start to ditch the past gen consoles as well. Like, maybe not Battlefield, because Battlefield's like is Battlefield coming to past gen consoles? I don't know if it is off the top of my head. But maybe next year Call of Duty and whatnot ditch the Xbox One and PS4 as well. And I think, like, as time goes on, more and more games will be native and they won't be backwards compatible running an Xbox One S version mode or whatever. And the console will really come into its own as a really high value option. I wouldn't be surprised if Microsoft revises the design of it and makes it even smaller down the line, makes it even cheaper, makes it even more of a no-brainer impulse kind of purchase. Because that's what it is. That's what it is. It's a Game Pass machine. It's a console for your kids. It's a console for people who've on a budget. It's a console for people who have 1080p TV and, want to experience SSD and 60 frames per second. And more games are being 60 frames per second. And That's what it is. It's a 60 frames per second machine, and I think they should push that aspect of it because more and more games are becoming 60 frames, and that's awesome.
Do you think? I guess the question is, you can basically get a Series S now, right? And some people have used like pictures of Series S being stocked as like a condemnation of the system not selling or people not wanting the Series S. But I would say, do you think it's more the Series S's purpose is more going to be attuned to the holiday season when people actually are shopping for new consoles and the PS5 and Series X are sold out, and then here's this new console that's cheaper, and finally you have all these games that are coming out that's kind of when the Series S will make its mark or have people like wanting to purchase it, right?
Well, I think like I think to some degree we've already seen the Series S make its mark. Like we've already seen Microsoft win NPD or come like close to winning NPD a few times, and I think the Series S is a big part of that. You know,
well, I mean,
definitely a big part of it.
you would, I think, honestly, winning NPD when it comes to revenue, the Series S is a handicap, isn't it? Because it's
I mean, in dollar sales, yeah, but like I'm talking unit sales. Right?
Oh, in unit sales, I don't. Well, they haven't won any in unit sales yet. Because Switch is a beast. They did win in June based on revenue, which I think they had a big restock of Series X. I sort of think like I understand Series S not necessarily blowing the doors off right now because I think people really want the Series X. But when, as you would describe them, normies, right? When the normies are out searching for something, when they're looking for Christmas presents, and Series X and PS5 might be sold out, that's when the Series S might become a more viable alternative, especially when there's a new COD out and a new Battlefield and Halo's out and Forza's out. Like we've talked about on this podcast before. Like, is there even a real reason to own a next-gen Xbox console today? It's not like Microsoft has put out a ton of exclusives. They haven't. I mean, it's just Gears Tactics at launch, which was already on PC. Microsoft Flight Sim finally just came out, but it was on PC a year before. Unless you're like really into like 60 frames and the high frame rate that next gen gives you, Microsoft, like Xbox themselves, really haven't given you that, okay, this is why I need a brand new console. Now, PlayStation's done maybe a little bit better job of it, you know, launching with Miles and launching with Demon's Souls and having Returnal and Ratchet come out where they've given you, okay, here's some exclusives that you can play. But like Xbox themselves, they really haven't yet, even though they will later on this year. So I sort of feel like Series S being on store shelves isn't really indicative of how it's going to play out in the long term. It's just a matter of getting the big games that come out, having a big marketing push, and people. I think the Series S is more like kind of one of those presents you buy somebody, or you know, like someone on the PlayStation side wanting to get a Series S. But it's kind of like because we talked about it last week, like even coming off the Xbox One gen, which was absolutely horrible, they've still sold more than they've ever had before. So people really want the next gen consoles, and it's just I kind of feel like if Microsoft had more more exclusives, quote unquote, reasons for people to upgrade outside of just a frame rate and stuff like that, then and obviously the stock shortage, I think it would be a lot higher. So.
Yeah, and the stock shortage is what it is. Apparently, that's going to continue through to next year as well.
Yeah,
so
I saw that.
Things aren't getting any better anytime soon, but the EU and North America are spinning up chip factories specifically to cut Asia out of the supply line to some degree, or at least help supplement it a little bit. But that's going to take, how long is it going to take to get those factories spun up and then
a long time
distribute and stuff? It's going to take a long time.
It's going to take a long time. Chan's Wolf in the super chat says, I don't hear you guys talk about it much, but what do you guys think of the current state of Red Dead Online? I feel as it's left in the shadow of Grand Theft Auto Online. Well, I think because we don't talk about it because I've never played Red Dead Online, so I don't like talking about things I don't have any experience with. And my last experience with Grand Theft Auto Online was during the launch back in 2013 of Xbox 360 on the Xbox 360. I have no idea what Grand Theft Auto Online is even like right now. So that's why we never talk about it. Like for me, and I'm maybe this is the same for Jez, maybe it's not, and I'm sure it might be the same for everybody in chat. Grand Theft Auto for me is single player only. I'm not interested in online. Red Dead Redemption is single player. I'm not interested in getting a posse and riding together online to do stuff. Once and I know I'm different. And Cognito made fun of me the other night about this. For Call of Duty, I'm single player only. I don't play Call of Duty multiplayer, so I'm in the minority on that one. So yeah, we don't talk about it simply because we don't play it, and because I'm not interested in it. I don't research stuff about any of that. Now, I am a bit concerned, Jez, about Grand Theft Auto 6. Take-Two came out and they said, hey, we've shifted 150 million units of Grand Theft Auto 5. It's always one of the top-selling games, like NPD, since 2013. They have an enhanced edition coming out later this year. I'm kind of worried potentially that Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to focus way more on the online aspect than the single-player aspect, and it might destroy one of my favorite franchises.
Yeah, I kind of feel that. I mean, they've made such an absurd amount of money with Grand Theft Auto purely because of the online stuff. I would not be surprised if the next Grand Theft Auto is some kind of MMO, full-blown, persistent online world kind of deal, especially since, like, some of the OG Grand Theft Auto people left to Take-Two Interactive a while ago.
Yeah, Dan Houser left, yeah.
Yeah, and there was some others as well, I think. But, I often think about this. I often worry, like, are we moving to a world where, like, we just don't get single-player games anymore? Are we moving towards a world where, like, every studio's chasing this dream of having the next Genshin Impact or having the next Fortnite or whatever, free to play, pay to win. Like Pokemon just launched this whole Pokemon Unite thing, which is like Pokemon League of Legends, except you can pay money to get like boosters for your characters. So it's like effectively pay to win in some way. Like someone who pays money is gonna have an advantage over someone who doesn't. But no one gets mad about it, Rand, because Nintendo can do anything they want.
I saw people responding to you when you said that about that, and they're like, "Well, what do you expect?" It's like, oh my god, really?
I just muted the thread because I was just like, I can't even deal with this $1 billion corporation. These are the same people who went to bat against EA when they did something similar for Star Wars Battlefront 2. And honestly, I think what EA did with Star Wars Battlefront 2 was not as bad as what they did with Pokemon, because at least Battlefront 2 is like. It's like an arcade game. It's a Zerg fest. It's like, who cares if someone has slightly more power than you? Because it's not really a competitive game. It's a very casual game where there's like 40 players just blasting each other across the map. Who cares if someone has slightly more power? But in Pokemon, like Unite, it's like supposed to be intimate. It has a ranked mode. It has like 6v6 battles. I think it's like a MOBA. It's supposed to be competitive, and you're going to give someone who pays money an extra advantage. That's the literal definition of pay to win. So like, if EA does something like that with Battlefront 3, these people better just accept it, because if you're accepting it for Pokemon, then don't be mad about Battlefront 2. Or maybe just the core just doesn't give a crap about Pokemon. I don't know. But I do worry, man. I do worry that like more and more devs are gonna like see those dollar signs in their eyes and be like, "Oh man, we should do something like that. We should do like soft pay to win or whatever to like convince people to buy things, because cosmetics ain't enough. Like it works for some games, but I think for a lot of others, it just kind of doesn't. Like, I don't know. I don't know, but in any case, I think there are some positive signs there. Like Bill's always talked about how Xbox Game Pass lets developers be as creative as possible because they want to capture as many genres as possible. Also, I think like the way the mobile game market is so saturated and how much user acquisition costs, that is a huge barrier to entry. Like not everyone can make a Genshin Impact because you have to spend so much money on marketing and boosting yourself in the algorithm. Like the Google Play Store marketing is basically pay to win as well. Like your mobile game is only going to get seen if you pay to win the marketing campaign or whatever. So a lot of companies just can't do that. Like sometimes you'll have like a viral hit like Among Us, but that is rare as hell. You know, it's super rare that a game can do that without marketing. So like even Microsoft couldn't do it. Like Microsoft tried to build a bunch of mobile games and they all failed because they didn't have a good user acquisition model. But and then you've got EA talking about like Dead Space coming back. Is Dead Space gonna have an online mode? Is it gonna have pay to win stuff in it? You don't know. You don't know because it's EA. And then they talk about Jedi Knight. They said in their investor call recently they want to continue the Jedi Knight series. Not Jedi Knight, Jedi Fallen Order. Sorry, Jedi Knight is that old game, not yeah. Jedi Fallen Order. They're gonna continue that. Are they gonna double down on the fact that it's like almost Souls-like in its structure? Almost, not quite, but almost. Are they gonna double down on that, or are they gonna pull back and make it more casual and add like multiplayer? Like you just don't know with these companies because they are ultimately chasing investor desires, which is ultimately the yacht fund. The investors need more yachts because they are powered by yachts, Rand. They don't eat food like us. They don't eat mayo and fries. They eat literal yachts. They crush them down and they eat them. That's how they subsist, these people. So maybe we shouldn't be so harsh towards them. Maybe we should be like kind about the fact they subsist entirely on yachts. And the bigger the yachts, the more sustenance they get. You know, man, I can hear an owl. There's like literally an owl outside my window. Can you hear that on the mic?
No, I cannot. I can't hear the owl. No.
There's like an owl like in the tree outside my window. That's crazy. It's so weird living in the countryside and hearing this kind of thing. Like when I'm in England, like I live in a really urban area, so the noises I hear out my car window are like car accidents, ambulances, and fire engines and stuff like that. When I'm here, I hear like weird animals in the middle of the night. Like, what the hell is that? And then like a random owl. So yeah, I've completely gone off on a tangent there, but yeah, we went from mobile games, pay to win, into owls, and now we're going back to you, Rand. What's the
Yeah.
next stuff?
Well, I mean, Smoke Show in Super Chat says, "What's your favorite fruit to shoot at in games?" As a reference to the whole fruit controversy that happened. What'd you think about all that, Jez? The Halo Infinite fruit turning into like, oh well, Call of Duty had it like this, but then people went through PlayStation's games and they then they were like, oh, like the future, like, what do you think about all that stupid stuff? Assuming you know what I'm talking. Assuming you know what I'm talking about, right?
What did you say? Just repeat the last.
The fruit stuff.
I had a work message.
The fruit stuff.
Fruit.
Like
What fruit?
You know, the Halo Infinite fruit controversy.
Oh God, yeah, the fruit. God, I was really confused about what you were talking about then. God, this owl's pissing me off, man.
Jeez, an owl.
What the hell? What the hell? There's like it's just a random owl outside my window. If I wasn't on the podcast, I would literally pull out a camera and go and see if I could get a nice picture of it. But there's literally an owl. It's freaking me out, man. It's like a horror movie. I'm from the city, man. I don't deal with this nature bullshit. But anyway, the fruit controversy, man. This was like the whole fruit controversy is like the quintessential example of fanboy bullshit, cognitive dissonance, ridiculousness. It just made me cringe so hard. My face shriveled up into a fist, and then I just headbutted the desk. And man, it was just what utter bullshit, man. Like, how utterly sad do you have to be to analyze the way inconsequential objects handle on a map? I would love it now if 343 went back and produced the most detailed, in-depth fruit physics now, just to be spiteful. Like when you shoot a melon, that each individual pip sprays out, and it's like the physics are supported by cloud calculations, and each individual seed realistically cascades across the surface, producing tiny ray trace shadows. What the fuck do these people want, man? What do they want from this bullshit, man? I just couldn't believe my eyes when I saw this. But, I mean, that's just the fanboy. It's the fanboy thing. It's next. It's like the whole Spider-Man. Just to put the shoe on the other foot. It's like the puddle controversy from Spider-Man. Do you remember that? The whole puddle thing. Of course,
the whole puddle thing. Yep. I remember.
Everyone was saying like Spider-Man's puddles weren't good enough. And it just reminded me of that. Like, fanboys are going to fanboy, whether they're Xbox fanboys, PC Master Race fanboys, or Nintendo fanboys defending the pay-to-win stuff, or Sony fanboys mad that Halo's fruit physics are not up to par. It's fanboys going to fanboy, and they're going to fanboy, and they're going to play Twitter instead of playing games. And, we play games on this podcast. We don't engage in this ridiculousness. Just play where you want and enjoy it. Why you gotta project your insecurities onto other people by downplaying someone else's console? You're a grown ass man. You're a grown ass.
Some of these are grown ass men with children. Some of them are even grown ass men with children that have grandchildren, and they're doing that stuff.
Yeah, it's so cringe, man. It's so cringe.
But
I got called an Apple fanboy this week.
Oh Jesus, you?
Like if you look, yeah, me, I got called an Apple fanboy. Like if you look in the comments on my I wrote an article about Xbox Game Pass for PC not being good enough, which I think we're going to talk about in a minute. And in the comments, someone was like, "Oh, what are you doing? This is supposed to be a Microsoft website. How dare you, talk about this? Are you an Apple fanboy?" Like stuff like this. And I was like, "You're calling me an Apple fanboy?" Like people get so insecure when you criticize something. And, vice versa, they have to project this idea that their choice is the superior choice. It just makes me cringe so hard, man. Makes me cringe, pal.
Yeah, man. The fruit stuff, we're just neck deep in the console war. War never changes, man. War never changes. It was like this during the Xbox 360, PS3 era. It was like it, obviously, really bad during the Xbox One, PS4 gen. And it's just continuing. It's never going to end. You have some people who were big, big instigators that basically stop, but then you have new instigators that start up and continue it on. And it's just rampant all over Twitter, people fighting about this stuff. And it's just like different games have different development, objectives. Like the fruit isn't important to shoot in Halo Infinite, So like, nope. Who cares that it's, blows up after a couple shots and it's not individual? Like, who honestly cares? I certainly don't. I care about the game running well. I care about the game looking good. I care about the weapon balancing. I care about all these millions of different things than before I would give a flying rat's ass about, well, does each tomato, blow up individually? You know what I mean? Who cares?
You said tomato again.
I said it for you. So I said tomato instead of tomato.
I say tomato.
Tomato.
Tomato. How do you say it? Tomato.
Yeah. I mean, come on, don't you can do the Rand voice, but Space Dovakin.
Tomato pizza, y'all.
He says, I think Xbox is set to have a really big holiday. I mean, yeah, depending on when Halo Infinite's going to launch. And Jez, when will Halo Infinite launch? And will Halo Infinite actually launch campaign and multiplayer together?
The $1 million question, isn't it, Rand? We have had a lot of delays this year. And I tweeted the other day to people who were gloating about PlayStation games being delayed. I was like, don't gloat too hard about PlayStation games getting delayed, because you never know. Halo 2 might be hit with a delay.
Jez, are you implying what I think you're about to imply?
No, I don't know, man. What are you talking about? What are you talking about, man? I have no information about Halo being delayed or not. But I will say that I just would not be surprised by any stretch of the imagination. I would not be surprised if Halo did get some form of delay, whether they release the multiplayer first and the single player second, and stuff like that. I would not be surprised. Because it is the year of delays. It's the year of disruption. It's the year of half my studio is working from home. It's the year of we can't collaborate effectively. It's the year of miscommunication. It's the year of, unresponded to emails, and that's what development's like right now. It's a clusterfuck. It's a mess, and I've said I've demonetized your video, Rand. I apologize.
It's fine.
It's fine. But that's just the mess we're in. So I would not be surprised if Halo got a little delay. Maybe just a single player gets delayed and they launch the multiplayer separately. I honestly would not be surprised. So
that would anger.
But I haven't heard anything to that end. I haven't heard anything.
This isn't like
This isn't a prediction.
This is a prediction. This is a prediction, or this.
No, this is a purely I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay.
This isn't me saying it will be delayed. This isn't me saying I've heard it's going to be delayed. This isn't me saying I'm pretending that I don't know, because I actually do know. That isn't even that. I literally have no idea if it's being delayed, but I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised. Would you be surprised?
If it got delayed? Yes, I would be, actually.
Yeah. How would you be mad?
I mean, I'd be disappointed. I'd be disappointed. I wouldn't rage on Twitter. I'm not one of those people that do the rage stuff. I'd be disappointed for sure, especially since it was supposed to come out last year, but I wouldn't be like upset. Now, maybe I would feel a certain way if they split and if multiplayer launched this year and campaign was next year, considering they promised at E3 they would launch together. Now that I'd be like, well, wait a minute here. Either way, I just figured I'd ask. The friendly neighborhood blue shell with the super chat, he says, I just bought the Series S for my sister. Well, I hope she really enjoys it. That's who the Series S is going to be for. People who really, don't have a 4K television, but for ones who aren't like us, like new to the Xbox ecosystem and stuff, right? So, that's, I know like a lot of people have been getting the Xbox Series S. One Bad Mother says the real question is, how were the shrimp physics? I don't know. Flame says, so this is the Xbox 2+1 owl cameo. Yeah, you need to get a picture of that owl, Jez.
Yeah, maybe. It's late at night here, so and I think it's gone now. I can't hear it anymore.
Yeah,
so maybe
I couldn't hear it. So Raiden Blade says GT 6 will have a full story mode with access to GT5 online mod. That's how he's seeing it. Maybe that's exactly how it'll work. Forte says he has a Series S for me to buy. I'm not really. It's just me, so it's like I don't really need a Series S. Like I could hook it up and it would just be waiting underneath the TV, but I would never really use it. I don't know. Maybe one day. We'll see. I actually kind of would want to get another Series X. Well, maybe if I did more traveling, I would do it. But people are saying don't jinx it, Jez, about Halo getting delayed. So yeah.
Oh man.
We got a new Xbox event coming up next week, Jez, on August 10th. Microsoft is doing another ID at Xbox Twitch event where hopefully this time they take the criticism of everything that people laid at their feet about the event, because even though there was a bunch of cool games announced, a bunch of Game Pass announcements, which we're looking to see again, like maybe we finally get a new Scorn trailer with a release date. Maybe they talk about Crossfire X, possibly, although I think I think Microsoft Studios is publishing that, or Xbox Global Publishing, so maybe not. Maybe, and I know I've seen people talk about this, maybe we see something new from the Gunk and a release date, because they're still saying it's 2021. Are there any expectations for you from this ID at Xbox Twitch event that is happening August 10th at 11 a.m.?
I'm just hoping that it's better than the last one they did. The last one they did had too much influencer BS, talking to random streamers, boring. And then into a game, it took ages and what to get actually into it and stuff like that. But I don't know. It's kind of keep my expectations low for these kind of events, especially because they're working in partnership with Twitch, and Twitch have their own agenda. Twitch kind of want to push, they want to push some of their celebrities and whatever, and that's fine. It is what it is. But I'm hoping that my team's probably going to do a roundup of all the big announcements instead of, if you don't want to watch the full slog, we're going to round up all the stuff from the show. But I don't have any big sort of expectations. I'm hoping that there's some more stuff for Game Pass maybe announced. But
yeah, I mean, I think
I
think they did say there's more stuff for Game Pass being announced. Yeah.
Yeah, I often wonder, are they sort of winding down how hard they're going at Game Pass right now? To save for the holiday season and maybe go for heavy hitters then instead, rather than the summer season. So I felt like there hasn't been there's been a couple. Like we've got the Ascent, I suppose, and we've got Hades coming,
and you got 12 minutes, and you got Art of Rally, and you got Omno. Like I saw a list recently that was like huge. Like it's just that these aren't the games you normally think of. Like I would imagine most people don't even think of Art of Rally when they think about a game coming to Game Pass, you know what I mean? Or Omno.
Yeah,
they only really think about like the big ones. But Dodgeball, some Dodgeball, our game launched on Game Pass yesterday. I forget the names, like our Dodgeball Academy or Dodgeball Arcadia or something, like it's an RPG. But like, I don't know, it's not one of those things that really gets a lot of press. But I get what you're saying. But I think
something like the MLB or Outright is like a big quarterly heavy hitter, I think, is what I'm sort of getting at.
See, but the thing is, I think, well, and this kind of goes to the Take-Two CEO recently. You heard what he said about subscription services, right? How it doesn't make sense for frontline games, but it does make a lot of sense for catalog titles. And he's basically not a fan of Game Pass, or at least he is like, it doesn't really make sense to put your big hitters day one in Game Pass, day one in a subscription service. And I still think there's probably a lot of publishers who still feel the same, who probably don't trust the data or whatever that Microsoft's given them. So I agree with you. Like having a Battlefield in Game Pass would be huge, like a big title that would push people to subscribe. And like, while having something like Omno, I mean, nobody's even going to know about it unless like we talk about it. And it doesn't seem like there's anything big coming to Game Pass because all the big titles, big AAA games normally don't, except for Microsoft's, right?
Yeah. I mean, those comments were interesting because kind of like, he just threw some crazy figures out there which people focused on, but I think he was exaggerating for effect or whatever. But
are you talking about? I'm not talking about Sean Layden. I wasn't talking about Sean Layden.
Oh,
I was talking about the CEO of Take-Two.
Oh, did he say that?
Yeah, during the call when they announced the Grand Theft Auto 150 million, he said,
"Oh, right."
He said that subscription services are good for catalog, and he said they're really good for catalog, and they like to put their games in there, and they've done that with Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead and all that stuff. But he said that it doesn't make sense to put your frontline games day one in a subscription service. And he went on to talk about how someone asked him to compare it to Netflix or whatever, and he says, well, like Netflix and Game Pass are different, where like he doesn't really think consumers need 200 games in a subscription service because, and I could be getting the quote wrong, but it was basically like, I'm paraphrasing, but someone on Netflix might watch 100 hours of shows on Netflix, and having all those shows like actually matter, but the common gamer may only play 1 or 2 games, and he might only play 40 hours a month. So having 200 games like is sort of meaningless, I guess. But yeah,
I mean, he's not wrong about that, and I think that's why Microsoft cycles the games in and out. It's not like they want to have like 1,000 games in there, because they're aware that at the end of the day, people they have data on how long and how much people play. They have a ton of data on consumer behaviors and habits, and that's why games cycle in and out. It's because they know the current size that it is. there's not much point putting too much in there because they don't want to oversaturate it. So the point of it is, it's a curated list of games, and designed to appeal to as many people as possible, while also respecting the time of the people that are in the service. So they're constantly analyzing the data and adjusting to that schematic. And he's not wrong that, like, I think Game Pass doesn't necessarily work for some games. Like, I know you're talking about Take-Two guy, but I think when Sean Layden was saying it doesn't make sense or whatever, I think what he really meant was it doesn't make sense for us. Like, you know, at the end of the day, God of War and all those games they're often single player games with no upsell. But in the case of a game like The Ascent, or a case of the game like Outriders, they're multiplayer games. So, like, while I jump into the game through Game Pass, I might be like saying to my friend, well, you should play this too, and then maybe they don't want Game Pass, so they end up just going out and buying the game outright, especially if they're cheaper. So I do think for certain games it does help. I do think for multiplayer games especially it does help. I think because, like, you're getting one person into the service and then potentially bringing their friends along with them. And the person with Game Pass is probably like the more influential person in the group, because maybe they're more, you know, connected with what's going on in the game industry right now. And they're just being aware of Game Pass in general is probably more of a core thing to be anyway. But I definitely think games like Sea of Thieves have been helped by Game Pass as well. But having said all that, I have heard from developers who said that they did see a drop in sales after joining Game Pass. Because Microsoft does like to say, and I tweeted this out, which prompted some developers to reach out to me. I tweeted out that Microsoft talks about data all the time, that Game Pass seems to boost the sales of a game through the virality of the game being included there. So I think, like, when they talk about that, they're talking about games like Sea of Thieves and Outriders, which are multiplayer games, and they create this sort of viral effect over the game. And that makes people want to buy it to play with their friends and stuff, but not necessarily subscribe to Game Pass. But I've heard from developers who make single player games who say that they've noticed that Game Pass actually harms their retail sales. And they talked about like it was good overall because it helped market the game, and also they got the royalty fees from Microsoft for doing so. So it's not like they lost money, but it's also like it sort of contradicts what Microsoft says about some of the multiplayer games, where it seems to boost retail sales. So I think, like, ultimately what I'm getting at is Game Pass is sort of like an ongoing, evolving thing. It's a new thing in gaming, and it isn't like Netflix, and it's not like Spotify. And finding the balance between making something that works for developers while also making something that works for gamers too and respects their time, while also not harming the retail industry, and while not harming, you know, different types of games or whatever, but also rushing towards this lowest common denominator where games are designed around being in Game Pass, which I don't think anyone wants. Which is why I think Microsoft is doing it on a more of a curation style basis, where they're like, we're going to have a smaller pool of rotating games supported by these permanent exclusives, you know. So I do think, like, it wouldn't necessarily work for Take-Two, who don't have a huge back catalog of games, unlike EA. For EA, it's worked pretty well. For Ubisoft, it's probably going to work pretty well. But for Take-Two, like, how many games has Take-Two launched, really, that they could put in there? Like, a lot of those older games, like the WWE games and the NBA games, like, those are licensed games. They couldn't put those in there anyway, because they're catalog games from, you know, an era where they'd need to get the licensing. Like, we see Forza exit sale because they don't have the car licenses anymore. So beyond that, what have you got? Like, the old Grand Theft Auto games? Is that all you're going to put in there? You know, and then games that aren't even, you know, ported to current gen consoles, like Max Payne. I don't know.
No, I mean, yeah, and this kind of goes to, I guess, the Ascent, right? You talked about the Ascent co-op, and the people are always worried about if Xbox Game Pass really does help games out, or if it's even profitable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That conversation constantly comes up. But specifically for the Ascent, I don't know if you saw, but Curve Digital says it was their best ever launch, over 5 million in sales for the weekend. And then you combine that with like MLB The Show doing the best it's ever been for PlayStation. They announced that it sold over 2 million sales and that it had 4 million players. Now, presumably, most of those extra players are for Game Pass. But here you have a couple instances of, listen, the game's on Game Pass day one for both. And I remember people saying, well, geez, MLB The Show's on Xbox on Game Pass. Nobody's going to buy this game. And people on PlayStation might just play it on Xbox for free. But that wasn't the case. People still bought MLB The Show. In fact, they bought it in greater numbers than they ever did, mainly because it's on 2 consoles now. So you're going to get more sales. But because it was on Game Pass, they even had double the user base. Instead of just 2 million, they had 4 million. And they talked about how good the DLC sales were for this game. Well, yeah, because you basically have a free-to-play audience, essentially. I think that's kind of what Game Pass acts as when you play something like this, where it's like, well, I didn't pay anything for the game, so I don't mind spending extra money on it. So it's like, okay, well, obviously all the people were wrong about it hurting MLB. And then you have the Ascent, a smaller indie game focused on co-op, really cool, and it's Curve Digital's biggest launch ever. Now, you could maybe say, well, maybe it's Curve Digital's biggest game ever, which, is understandable, but I think the virality of what, that you mentioned is 100% the truth. And that's why I think Back 4 Blood will probably do extremely well on Game Pass, because when you have a whole bunch of people playing the game and then those people tell other people to play it, it kind of then just rolls over. And then I think it kind of helps markets the other versions of the game, like the PC version, whether on Steam or on, the Windows 10. So it's like you keep on getting these examples of what Phil talked about how like that virality really helps sells the game more. So you have these couple examples. But obviously, I think like there are some examples you could probably point to where it's sold a single player game sold less. This is that I don't think Microsoft wants those stories to come out, right?
Yeah.
I would love to see what it would do for a game like Omno, like a small indie game that nobody really knew about, and see how it really affected that. But so you talk about all these Game Pass successes, right? And there's someone I want to talk about because you kind of ruffled some feathers, but I need to hit up these super chats. We got Raiden Blade saying, look, reason to delay it would be because of Call of Duty, talking about Halo. The Friendly Neighborhood Blue Shell says, Jez, the article is already being written. Headline, Jez of Windows Central says that Halo Infinite delay is a good possibility. Yeah, here we go.
God.
Can you imagine if that actually happened? Jeez. Phil Spencer would be in your DM, be like, what have you done, Jez? And he'd be like, I didn't say it. I didn't mean it like that. Jacqueline Brand says, hey Jez, any update on when you and Colin are having that sit down? Also, Rand, when are you showing up on Defining Duke? Love you guys, keep it up. I mean, I'd love to be on Defining Duke, but that'd be probably when I'm on camera. Of course, if Lord Cognito and if Mr. Matty Plays would want me on. But yeah, you and Colin kind of talked a little bit, and you might be on a show, right, in the future at some point in time.
Yeah, I talked to him a little bit about it. I think it's just a case of lining up schedules and stuff like that. We'll see what happens. I don't even have a webcam where I am right now, so it might be something I reach out to him about when I go back to England in October. So.
Raiden Blaze says, Jez, is one of those Dragon games possible? A Panzer Dragoon Saga remake? And what would be your reactions or thoughts on this?
It's not.
It's not. So unfortunately, no. Raiden Blade.
All right.
It's definitely not. Wolf Assassin says, any idea which of the Xbox first-party studios after Playground with Forza Horizon 5 is the closest to releasing their game, and which studio is the farthest out? I can't imagine Turn 10 is far away at all. So that's an interesting question. So after Forza, Jez, which first-party is the studio that's the closest and farthest away?
That's tough.
I would say, just based on what we know for next year, I would say Arcane Austin is the closest, right? We know that's summer of next year.
With Redfall?
Yeah, with Redfall.
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't see any other game coming out, or at least announced for early next year. So they'd be the closest. The furthest out, In Exile, one of In Exile's games.
Yeah, maybe Project Cobalt from In Exile's the furthest out. The steampunk thing.
Yeah, because I was thinking they just did Wasteland. Double Fine's about to put out Psychonauts 2. 343 is about to put out Halo. I mean, Coalition, they did Gears in 2019. Gears 5, Gears 6 is probably a couple years out, although they're supposed to do another project.
What about Elder Scrolls? That might.
I was thinking that, but isn't that the same? But I mean, like Starfield's about to come out, and that's the same team, right? That would be doing it, or is there a different studio working on? Well, I don't know. I was just kind of that studio's next game is soon.
I feel like Elder Scrolls is like this Skyrim changed the industry, and that is a high bar. I presume they're gonna want to smash that bar with the next Elder Scrolls. So I wouldn't be surprised if that has a longer than usual dev cycle because of it. So I would say Elder Scrolls is probably the furthest out, but I could be wrong.
Our buddy Special Nick tweeted out, seriously, I thought we were done with the shrimp shit. You should reply to him.
What shrimp shit?
I don't know. The Xbox shrimp stuff.
I'm not doing the shrimp stuff anymore.
Okay, you're not doing the shrimp stuff anymore. You caught a break.
No, because it's sort of like some company selling the Xbox shrimp controller, so they're like making money off the shrimp controller.
Off of your
and if
thing?
I put from my meme, yeah. So they're making money off my meme. So if I keep talking about the meme, I'm marketing their money for them. So I'm not talking about shrimps anymore.
Right.
So yeah.
Hey.
And I think it's a pretty scummy thing that they're doing, to be frank.
Hey, make sure you guys,
they should donate the profits to charity, I think.
If you guys are enjoying the show, make sure you hit the like button. We'd appreciate it. Raiden Blaze says, hey chat, who would love a Panzer Dragoon Saga remake with the chance of growing the franchise? I'm sure there'd be a lot of people that would enjoy that. I'd actually like to see Panzer Dragoon come back. I kind of like that.
Never played the original.
Yeah, Raiden Blaze says, what about Compulsion Studios? I think we'll see that game announced next year. I think it probably comes out in 2023. So they're not the farthest away, definitely, for sure. RDX Sunafet says, look at the new series controller, Halo-inspired. Yeah, did you see Xbox Pope's Halo controller? The Needler kind of one, Jez?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, looks really cool.
He's the guy selling my shrimp controller.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. He's the guy selling your shrimp controller. Got it. I doubt many people are buying the shrimp controller. Let's ask Chad. Has anybody in chat bought the shrimp controller?
I got quite a few messages from people who saying they bought it, but
no.
Don't know.
So, even though there's a Game Pass has seen a lot of success, right, that we talked about, there's still some things that they need to improve upon. And you wrote an article, basically, that ruffled some feathers, saying that Xbox Game Pass for PC is not where it needs to be, and they need to do a lot of improvements. Now, I haven't used Xbox Game Pass on PC, so personally, I have no input on this. I play strictly on console. But you actually do the cloud gaming, you game on console, you game on PC, and you think Xbox Game Pass PC is pretty bad right now, right?
Xbox Game Pass for PC is in a bad place, I would say. It's pretty awful. It's super disappointing, actually, because I feel like Game Pass for PC is where Microsoft has the most potential for growth, by far. Like, they don't have a huge presence on PC. They don't have... the console install base isn't necessarily growing beyond what it's always sort of been. So I feel like Game Pass for PC should be a very, very aggressive area of growth for Microsoft. There are loads of indie games that could put on Game Pass for PC. There are mountains of them. And also there's loads of PC exclusives they could grab for it. And it just feels like it's being such a wasted opportunity right now. But it's not just about the library. It's also about the quality of the service. Like the fact that they use these UWP containers, which suck, and a lot of games don't work properly with them. Like they work great when they're made when they're like set up properly. But too many studios either don't know how or don't care to make the UWP containers work properly because they're used to Steam. So, and they're used to Win32. Now Microsoft has announced that they're going to let containerless Win32 apps on the store, but I'm not sure if that's happening until Windows 11. But as of right now, all these games that are set in containers are often worse than their Steam counterparts. Like, for example, the Ascent has graphic features on the Steam client that aren't available on the Xbox Game Pass for PC client, which is just kind of unacceptable, right? And there's also like Pillars of Eternity. My example was Pillars of Eternity on Game Pass is completely broken, whereas like it works completely fine on Steam and on Xbox. And like I even worked with Obsidian for a little while, trying to get this bug fixed that breaks the game. But alas, after several months, it just hasn't been fixed. And I'm guessing that's because it's such a low priority for them, which is fine, But it should be a priority for Microsoft to make Xbox Game Pass for PC a good service to use. The Game Pass app for PC is slow as hell. It is by far the slowest app on my PC. When you right click on a menu, it takes like a few seconds to open up, when it should be instant. When you right click anywhere else on my computer, it's instant. When you right click on Game Pass for PC, it's slow as hell. When you try and install mods, every time like Microsoft does an update or whatever, it wipes all your mods because the way it's set up, it verifies the system integrity, the file structure integrity, and it sees a mod and thinks like, oh, these files are broken, I must fix these. So it wipes all your mods away. It's an awful system. It's half baked. It's slow. UWP sucks. The content delivery network sucks. Downloading apps don't work half the time. Games, sorry. And everything about it is just subpar. When it should be Microsoft's biggest focus area right now, I think. They should be focusing really, really hard on Game Pass for PC because it's an obvious growth opportunity. And they just haven't been. It's like so slow, so painful. And the updates to the platform have just been awful. Like every now and then I get an update for the Xbox app and it's like, oh, what have they updated? And then I open it and there's like nothing. And like nothing's changed. Maybe they've moved an icon around or something. Like what the hell is going on with this app that it could be so bad for so long? And it's just again, it comes back to Microsoft just sucking at Windows. Like Microsoft is the Windows company. Why do they suck so bad on their own platform? I don't get it. But alas, that's my rant about Game Pass for PC. And I've had like a bunch of people from Microsoft talk about this. Like someone at Microsoft said they didn't appreciate the tone of the article. And I was just like, well, I'm just being honest. Whereas like some of the people at Microsoft sent me a DM and said like, we totally agree with you. And, we are working hard to fix it. So Microsoft knows it's a problem. And it's just frustrating that whenever I try and use it, I often just think, ugh, I mean, I'm paying for Game Pass Ultimate, but the experience is so bad and Steam sales are so good, I might as well just buy the game on Steam, which is often what I do. I play Pillars of Eternity is better on Steam than it is on Game Pass, even though like on Game Pass I can get it for effectively for free from having Game Pass Ultimate. So I think like it's a huge failing that Microsoft hasn't put into Game Pass for PC, and I only hope that they'll realize the error of their ways and try and do something about it soon, because it could go the way of like every other Steam competitor, which is ultimately to fail, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's my rant about Game Pass for PC. It's not good. Needs better, more work done to it.
I think part of the reason why, and we talked about this earlier, and we don't have the numbers for Game Pass, right? Might be 22 million, who knows? But I think for Microsoft to completely hit their vision for Game Pass and to hit 50 million subscribers and beyond, they need the PC market. And with the way Xbox Game Pass on PC is set up, I don't think you're ever going to capture that PC market. I think that, I think like the years and years and years of the Windows Store being horrible has just conditioned PC gamers to never touch it. Especially since Microsoft releases their own games on Steam anyways, right? So I feel that unless they completely turn around and in 3 years we're talking about how amazing the store is to use, I kind of feel like they almost have to put Game Pass on Steam in some way to truly hit that PC market. Because, you know, you have Age of Empires 4 coming out on PC Game Pass, you know, soon, right, in October. But how many people are actually going to screw around with how the launcher works and everything when they can just play it on Steam? So I don't know. I feel like Game Pass, you know, you have this 3-tiered structure for Game Pass. Clearly right now the console's doing the brunt of the work, console players, right? And that's where it mostly seems a lot of Microsoft's dedication is towards it, right? Getting games for console, big games for console, whether it's Back 4 Blood or Outriders, MLB The Show and stuff. But then they also don't, for those type of games, they also don't do a PC version as well. So a lot of people get upset with that. They're also really heavily focused on mobile. You know, they talk about it all the time. They made sure to get, you know, the Android version out, and they really fast-tracked the Windows 10 PC browser base because of iOS. And it does seem like PC is sort of fallen behind, like the Xbox Game Bar and all that stuff, in comparison. And I feel like for Game Pass to explode on mobile when it hits like those newer markets, like I think that scenario is still years away. I think streaming is still going to be mostly about a supplemental experience. Like, oh, I'm traveling, I don't have my Xbox, so I'm going to stream from my phone. Or, oh, my wife or kids are using the TV my Xbox is hooked up to and I can't play. I'm going to use my phone or my tablet. I think it's still some years away from actually people in India or people in South Korea who normally wouldn't have an Xbox to suddenly subscribe. Like, I think we're some time away from that. But like, you need that PC audience. And people are buying Microsoft's games en masse on Steam, and they talk about it in their, you know, their earnings reports about how last quarter and everything, like, you know, the Xbox first party, you know, sales and how good those games sold offset how the decline in third party. So I kind of sort of wonder if like people, if there's ever going to be a push at Microsoft to be like, listen, to make this Game Pass thing a reality, we need PC to be a strong, you know, like second leg, where right now it really doesn't seem like it. But then again, I don't have any of the numbers. I just constantly see people complaining about it on Twitter. I see your article. You've bitched about Xbox Game Pass PC to me before. People I know that I've talked to on Xbox, they've used it and they say it's bad. So it's like, I just wonder if Microsoft's just going to have to bite the bullet and just be like, listen, we need to get this on Steam if they truly want like Game Pass to hit those big numbers, you know?
I think they can compete with Steam. Like nobody ever would have said like it's been about a good 10 years or more since Chrome became like the dominant web browser. Like everyone, like the thing to do when you get a new PC is install Chrome as fast as possible. Like Internet Explorer and Edge is the web browser used to install Chrome. But since Microsoft actually made Edge really good and invested a ton of money into it, made it as fast as Chrome, if not faster, with a nicer interface and more features and stuff, Edge has started to eat Chrome's lunch, you know. And then Chrome also has all these negative memes about how much RAM it uses and stuff. And the quality of the experience on Edge has led to people adopting it. And I feel like because Microsoft has an advantage of having the Xbox app pre-installed on Windows, they have an advantage in a way to actually regain market share, but only if the experience is better. Because, you know, Steam is already offering amazing value already, you know, so Game Pass competing with Steam on value isn't good enough. You need to compete with Steam on the experience, which is going to take a mountain of investment. But I think it's investment well worth doing. You know, in some ways, I would invest more in Game Pass for PC than I'd invest in mobile right now. Like, they've spent all these money on cloud servers and stuff, but all the games that are running on the cloud just aren't designed for a small screen. They're a pain to play. Like 90% of the games on xCloud are just a pain to play on a small screen, unless you're absolutely desperate and there's no other option. Like the fonts, like I tried playing Pillars of Eternity on xCloud, man. The fonts are so damn tiny and the controls are so damn fiddly that it's just like almost impossible to play on a phone. Like, it's almost like, why even put this here? Like, it's just not a good experience. Like, it has to be on PC or it has to be on Xbox. And with Xbox, the experience is great. But on PC, the experience is just awful. And I feel like, using Edge as an example, if the experience is good enough, people will come, but the experience just is not good enough right now. And I think Microsoft really needs to accept the fact that if they want to compete with, these big players in the PC space, like Twitch or like Steam, if they're really serious about doing it, and Xbox Game Pass does compete with Steam. I don't care what anyone says. It does compete with Steam. Because Steam is offering amazing value. It's a client that serves PC games. It does compete with Steam. If they want to compete with those services and those platforms, they need to offer an experience that is at least as good as, and then hopefully push a little bit further and be better. Because right now it's just atrocious. It's just terrible. It's like, it's something you just wouldn't want to do willingly, So, will they do it? Will they just give up like they gave up with Mixer? I don't know.
No.
Time will tell, I guess.
I think there was probably, with Mixer, I think there were probably people in the organization that are like, why are we buying this? And even though it may have made sense to some people, and it may have been that, like, hey, we need some sort of easy entry point to xCloud. Like, I remember telling you, like, I don't think Mixer is going to last long. I don't think it fits in, and it didn't. Where, like, I think PC, is like a huge growth opportunity for Xbox. And maybe, I don't know, maybe they're just fine selling their games on Steam, at record levels. Like, you look, and it's like, sometimes it's like the top 10 is just filled with Microsoft games. And it's probably going to be like that with Halo and Forza Horizon at the end of the year, maybe even Psychonauts. But to really grow Game Pass, they either got to fix the Xbox Game Pass PC, or they're going to have to put it on Steam. But I guess, we'll find that out in a little bit, you can't wait that long. Scott Becker, because investors are going to be like, okay, well, is Game Pass growing? And sure, like, you have a console base that's rabid for it, but their whole strategy is to get people who don't own the console to get it. And that might work in a couple years through the mobile stuff, but like, there's 200 million PC players? You gotta access them at some point. You need a better delivery service to do it. Scott Becker says, "Hey guys, will the Game Pass Ultimate deal to include EA Play going to continue into a second year? Is there a possibility that Microsoft might buy EA? I don't think there's any possibility Microsoft buys EA, and I do think the EA Play in Game Pass Ultimate is longer than 1 year. In fact, I think Aaron Greenberg has said so as much. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a 3-year deal. What do you think, Jez?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a deal. I don't think and I also don't think they're going to buy EA. EA is too damn big. That being said, I think they should be looking to that kind of level of acquisition in the future, especially in the mobile space. Because the games that work best on xCloud are mobile games. Monster Train, Slay the Spire. They're really simple, short gameplay loops. They're mobile games, basically. They're mobile games that are on Xbox. And I think those are the games that work best on xCloud. And if Microsoft wants to grow xCloud, they really need someone who understands that space. Like, EA has a lot of great mobile games. So, like, I wouldn't be against them buying EA because of that angle. And also, like, FIFA Ultimate Team prints money, but that'd be a hefty investment and a hell of a lot of money and a hell of a lot of complications. I would suggest.
Yeah.
What was the other part of that question?
If EA Play the Game Pass Ultimate deals longer than 1 year,
I think it's probably in perpetuity.
You think it's forever? I don't know if it's forever, but I definitely think it's.
I think
longer
they'll
than
renew
1
it.
year.
Yeah, I think they'll renew it and adjust it. I think it's pretty much in perpetuity. Like that, they've literally got their own section on the app. Like, I don't think you go to that extreme if it's not like a sort of.
Well, it might be a significant time. Maybe it's a 5-year deal where it's like makes sense because it's 5 years, but you could be right. Raiden Blaze says that is a strange one. Some people have a problem with Game Pass for PC and some don't. It has to do with optimization. Yeah, and I see plenty of people in chat saying that they don't have a problem with Game Pass for PC. So, I guess I don't know. I don't use it, so all I know is, from what people have told me that it doesn't work very well. But then there's people in chat that say, hey, it works perfectly well for me. So, I guess it really depends. What else we got here? JC says, as state-span games, PC streaming will grow. And Hunter Smith says, when Doom 3 launched on PC Game Pass, when the merger was approved, it would never open, though it would on Steam. It seems to have been fixed recently. So yeah, so even though Xbox Game Pass has seen a lot of success with a bunch of different titles and kind of disproving a bunch of people wrong, there's still things they need to do to improve the service and reach that, as many people as possible. EA just had their earnings call. Mass Effect Legendary Edition exceeded expectations, which is exciting. Hopefully it lets BioWare make Mass Effect 4 the way they want to in the vein of the original trilogy. Dead Space, I saw Jeff Grubb say it's a holiday 2022 title. I want to say Collider said that it's like going to be like God of War, where it's like no cuts, single shot, which is going to be absolutely incredible. Can't wait for that. But then they said something that didn't really sit well with you, where they said they don't get enough credit for how well they work with acquired studios, which I think also is very laughable, because there's a graveyard. There's an actual meme of EA killing off studios they acquire. So I think this is just absolutely hilarious. And it's simply because, we worked really good with Respawn and we didn't kill them off yet. You know what I mean? And we just bought Codemasters.
They didn't kill them off. They just killed Titanfall instead.
Yeah, they just killed Titanfall.
EA saying they work well with their acquired studios is absolutely laughable. They work with them until there's an issue. They work with them well until there's an issue, i.e. Titanfall not selling well enough, forcing a forcible pivot to Battle Royale. But then there is a graveyard of studios. There's a graveyard of studios and a graveyard of IP. Instead of letting Visceral work on Dead Space, they forced them to make Battlefield Hardline. And where are we at now, several years down the line? Oh, let's make another Dead Space, after seeing how well Resident Evil's been doing when you actually make a horror game. A horror game. Who'd have fucking thought? You know? But
hey, demonetization, man. All those F-bombs. You're killing me over here.
Sorry, man. I'm sorry, man. You're gonna have to sell the Ferrari, man.
I'm gonna have to. Jez is just demonetizing all the podcasts with his swearing.
Okay, can you not get money if there's swearing?
No, podcast, it's fine. I mean, nope, they're not checking it 2 hours in, but you got to be careful within the first minute or two of a video, because they do kind of, and you also have to self-report. I don't know, you've uploaded videos, so I'm sure you kind of got to tell them if you say something or bad, or if there's certain types of blood in your videos, you're supposed to self-report your own stuff. Either way, it's not a big deal. I was just joking around. Go ahead, continue.
Yeah, I apologize. Also, I apologize if anyone doesn't like swearing. I'm just sort of in that mood at the minute, especially when you bring up EA. I just can't help but drop the F-bombs, because EA is they are the killer of franchises and the killer of studios. Look at BioWare, man.
Oh man.
And it was so funny that EA in their investor call was like, oh, we were surprised how well Mass Effect Legendary Edition sold, and we were surprised that the first game was the most popular. No shit, EA. My God, are they so out of touch? So out of touch? It drives me up the wall, man. But I don't know. EA is going to EA, and we sort of they go through these periods of yeah, we're going to release some cool games now. We're going to, make a single player game, Jedi Fallen Order, Dead Space Remake, whatever. And then they'll go through a dark period of trying to sneak pay to win in and stuff like that. And it's with EA, it sort of ebbs and flows, where they try new things like Mirror's Edge, and then they fall back and then turn Dead Space into a Gears of War clone. They do this all the time. Over the years, they have these ebbs and flows. And I saw what one of our younger writers was I want to write an article about how EA has improved lately. With respect to because they were excited about Dead Space and they were excited about Jedi Fallen Order and stuff. And I was just I've gone through this before. Like I remember distinctly this happening in the Xbox 360 era, where everyone was like, "Oh wow, EA is actually doing pretty good lately. They made Dead Space and they made Mirror's Edge, and they're trying new things." And then like they completely pissed that all away. And then in the following couple of years, when the investors demanded more yachts, the investor gods were unsatisfied with the volume of yachts they had acquired that year.
I sort of feel like you have a thing for yachts. Like subconsciously, you really want a yacht.
I don't want a yacht. I do want a sailboat though.
You want a sailboat?
I don't necessarily want. I like the idea of like living. Like on my Instagram feed is full of people who live on boats, like customized like boats, and they live on them. Like go fishing, live at the sea. I think it's like my Nordic blood. I think I just want to live at sea, man. But not on a yacht. That's lame. I want like a boat with a big sail, fishing stuff at the back. No, none of this social media or writing. Just me and the ocean, open ocean. Wouldn't that be cool? Like Sea of Thieves, but
that would
life.
Be cool.
Yeah, maybe not. And, as soon as I run out of mayonnaise, I'll be coming back to land.
Mayonnaise. Raiden Blade says, I've noticed that there is a WB sale on Xbox. Last time that happened, ZeniMax got bought. What are the chances? I mean,
there's no correlation.
Yeah,
there's no correlation.
This happened before when the rumors were happening. People were convinced it was a sign. These sales are kind of done way in advance and stuff, and I'm not saying that they won't buy some of the WB studios, but just because there's a sale on Xbox there's no correlation between any of that stuff. Even though I know people want there to be. People want, these Microsoft to make acquisitions because they see Embracer Group buy another 7 studios like 3D Realms and Ghost Ship, the people that did, what's that dwarf game that we played, Jez, that we really liked? Oh God, I'm blanking. Deep Rock Galactic, yeah. So they have 77 studios now, 8,000 employees, and it's like, man, what are they planning to do with all these studios? I
have no idea what Embracer Group's thing is. Like, I have literally no idea.
Right.
No idea what their end game is. What the hell are they thinking?
I don't know. Maybe their own streaming service. I honestly don't know. But then, Focus Home Interactive I'm buying .mu or. I forget I don't know how to say them, but they're the people that made Streets of Rage 4.
That is a huge loss for Sega. A huge loss.
Yeah. And actually, that could have been a nice pickup for Xbox. They would have made some cool games, but I don't know. Outside of all those lists, I really don't see those studios being anything or worth much to Xbox. Like you said, I think they're looking for bigger fish to fry, essentially.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's all that stuff going on within the industry. Raiden Blade also says Japanese companies more favor other Japanese companies over other countries outside of Japan, but money talks, and when you're losing money, you change. And he also says, Jez, you want a canal boat to ride Lee Valley River or Thames, right?
I don't think you couldn't, if you put a canal boat on the Thames, I think you might sink. Canal boats have to be on canals. Yeah, I know shit, man. I know shit. I would like a canal boat.
People are
do you have canals in America?
It depends. Probably in some of the southern places or whatever. Sounds like Jez is gonna get lost at sea.
I might look into it. Like, how much are canal boats? Canal boat for sale, UK. Let's see how much canal boats are. It's like there's loads of canals where I live because like the UK was like the Industrial Revolution or whatever, and before cars they used to transport things by boat to these huge canals they built all around my county. So there's loads of canal boats. Man, they're pretty expensive actually. 100 grand? Do you have a spare 100 grand?
I wish I had a spare 100 grand. Yeah.
38-foot cruiser, stern narrowboat, perfectly set up to live off the grid. 38,000. Actually, that's really nice inside. Man, I would totally live on a canal boat. I couldn't afford it, but
it'd be nice, right? It'd be nice.
It'd be nice. Some Starlink, Elon Musk satellite internet, playing Xbox while on the canal.
Jez,
pretty cool.
What about the Embracer thing? Is Embracer just going to buy all these studios and then just get acquired by Tencent? And then Tencent owns the whole video game industry.
I have no idea. I don't know if you've seen the Chinese stock market apocalypse that's been happening in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So like the Chinese government's been cracking down on Tencent or some other tech companies pretty hard because they're like, you guys are getting too big. We don't like companies that are too big to fail. That whole sort of like, communism thing, I guess. So like Tencent and Huawei and a bunch of other companies were recently hit with sanctions and forced to spin stuff out and whatnot. And I think the New York Stock Exchange actually banned Chinese stocks because they're sort of become volatile. Like you can't, like it's not fair if you invest in something assuming it's a good investment and then the government just comes in and slaps a big sanction on the company. So they've actually like fully banned the sales of those shares for now. So I don't know if Tencent isn't necessarily in a position to maybe make more big acquisitions. Maybe they don't care so much about acquiring stuff in the West. I don't know, but I suppose. But yeah, Rand, I have no idea. I have no idea what their end game is. I've tried to speak to people at Xbox about this. Like, what the hell are they up to? What are they planning? And nobody can give me a decent answer. Like, nobody really knows.
Maybe they're gonna start their own Embracer console.
Dude, what?
I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Seems like maybe a streaming service or subscription service or something. I don't know. But I don't know. Embracer console. I don't know. Either way, I think we've come to the end of the show. So, if you guys have any questions that you want us to kind of answer before we get out of here, make sure you put them in the chat. We thank each and every one of you for being here on this Friday. I much rather do the show on Fridays than Saturdays. So hopefully we can have a stretch where we do this on Fridays. We appreciate everyone in here. Everyone who hit that like button, which means if you haven't hit that like button, make sure you do, and subscribe if you're new to the channel. All the super chats and all the new members are greatly appreciated. And Jez will have this up as soon as he's able on iTunes and Spotify and Google Play and stuff. And one of the guys, the guy who actually suggested the name of the podcast, Xbox 2 Stick Figure, actually says if you go to Spotify and search Xbox, at least in his area, like our podcast comes up first.
That's awesome.
It's pretty damn cool. So yeah, Raiden Blaze says Canal Boat rent free, no mortgage. Last Emperor says, Rand, have you played Chris Tales? No, I haven't. Have you, Jez? Have you played Chris Tales? Sorry.
I've installed it, but I haven't played it just yet.
Yeah, I haven't played it yet either. I don't think I
do plan on playing it though. It looks pretty cool. It's like a JRPG inspired kind of game, my kind of game, but I just haven't gotten around to it, man. I'm just looking through all these canal boats right now.
Yeah.
Some of them don't even have bathrooms though. Like what the hell do you do if you live on a canal boat and it doesn't have a bathroom? Do you just like go over the side of the boat?
I don't know. Caloric says, hey, Rand, thoughts on Embracer now owns 3D Realms, who used to make Nuke Nukem, and since they purchased Gearbox, who owns the IP, I think Duke Nukem will come back to the old devs. Actually, I don't think that's the case. I think 3D Realms is getting put under Saber, and Gearbox owns the IP, but I don't really know about all that. Duke Nukem is a... Does Duke Nukem really need to come back? Does anybody care about Duke Nukem in 2021? Duke Nukem Forever was an awful game, so I'm not sure anybody really cares about it.
Yeah.
Adrian says, you guys know it's 2 different apps on Windows for Xbox, right? Yes. But I mean, I don't use Xbox Game Pass for PC. That's all Jez, and that's was Jez's experience about the Game Pass app on PC. And he didn't care for it, and he says it needs to be improved. So that's his opinion on it. Thanos,
yeah, like the apps are like the Xbox Companion app, which is the Windows 8 old legacy app. I'm talking about
which
the
isn't
Windows
supported
10
anymore.
Xbox Game Pass. Yeah, the Xbox Companion app is not supported anymore. So
yeah, that's Jez's opinion, and if you don't like it, then it is what it is. But he says it needs to be improved. Thanos says, will Xbox remove their own games once first-party games become too many? I would assume you meaning Game Pass. No, that's the whole point. Is that it's supposed to build up a huge library. Kind of like Netflix with their originals, where they don't leave like third-party games do or indie titles. The more games Microsoft makes, the bigger the library becomes, and then it's like man, you subscribe and you have access to all this stuff. That's the whole point. So first party games, the only ones that might leave will be ones with license issues, like Forza Motorsport 7, potentially Forza Motorsport 4, Forza Horizon 4. If it follows the same pattern, will be delisted next year and removed from Game Pass. But maybe it's worth more to Microsoft to renegotiate that license, because Forza Horizon 4 is a evergreen title and it still sells and it, all that stuff. But then with Forza Horizon 5, do you really need 4 out there? So who knows? Make a prediction here, Jez. Will Forza Horizon 4 get delisted next year?
I don't think so. I think like Forza Horizon 4 has been too big of a game. But then again, maybe they
Want
do
everybody
that to try and shift people over to Forza Horizon 5. I don't know.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. I've thought about that as well. Like, well, maybe they do delist it because they want people to play on 5. Axel wants to know if we could guest on one of his YouTube videos. I'm always down for guests, and just hit me up in DMs if people want me to do a podcast appearance. I'm always usually down to do a podcast appearance. It's a little bit later for Jez, which is why you don't see Jez do many, because what time is it by you right now? It's 5 p.m. here, Central Time.
Midnight.
It's midnight for Jez. So
I am a tired boy.
Usually when podcasts are live here in the States, it's usually way too late for Jez. Christopher says, hey, with Mike Ybarra at Blizzard as the co-lead, do you see deals with Xbox in the future?
No, because Mike Ybarra might be managing the studio, but Activision executive leadership team make all the decisions. So I don't think you'll see any significant change there with Mike running the studio. Like the real people who run the studio is Kotick and his executive leadership team. Mike didn't get a change in job title or anything. Basically, what this was the end of Blizzard's autonomy. Before, Blizzard had its own CEO for a while, and then when Mike Morhaime left, they had J. Allen Brack, who became like the president of Blizzard, not the CEO. And now that he's gone, Mike didn't get a job title change. He's still the executive vice president, I think, or something like that, or something to that degree. He didn't get a job title change, and he doesn't get to make any decisions from what I'm aware of as pertains to, what they do with that stuff. I think he's like ultimately managing the team, and I don't think you see significant changes on the way that Activision works with Xbox to that degree, I'm afraid. But generally in the past, Blizzard's been worked pretty well with Xbox. Like Overwatch was enhanced for the Xbox One X pretty quickly, compared to like the PS4 Pro, I think. So who knows, I think it could go either way, but I wouldn't say that Mike being there is going to make anything super different.
And who knows, maybe with Mike being there, maybe it'd be worse, because maybe he still holds a grudge against Xbox.
Yeah, who knows? It could even be worse. Yeah, so.
If there is a grudge to be held. But yeah, I think it'll just be business as usual. Jake says, sadly, any fixed wireless and Starlink has garbage ping, 100 plus MS bad. That's all, says Jez. Is Microsoft pushing forced crossplay for the Xbox ecosystem first? Gears 5, now Halo Infinite. Are they pushing crossplay? Interesting. Forced crossplay.
Yeah, this bugs me because like in the past when I played Sea of Thieves, like obviously when I've been killed, it's obviously by people who've like been playing with the mouse and they turn really quickly and stuff like that. And some weapons are just easy to aim and line up when you're using a mouse. And you can plug a mouse and keyboard into your Xbox and compete with them, directly. But who wants to do that? A lot of people I just don't. When I set up my Xbox, I want to play with the controller. So, however, Microsoft claims, and this has certainly been reflected in esports recently, that controller players don't necessarily get a big enough disadvantage to warrant separating them out. And it does feel like in some situations that might be the case. Like, for example, in Overwatch, there are heroes that you can play in Overwatch that don't need to aim, really. They just sort of roll around and do punches and stuff. But like in the case of Halo, that is potentially more problematic. But I've seen arguments from the other side too, where PC gamers have complained that console players get aim assist or whatever, and bullet magnetism and stuff like that to help them, you know, be up to par and stuff. So I think Microsoft's argument would be that what they don't see a significant drop off in combat effectiveness when it's controller versus, you know, PC. And I think like that might be true on volume. Like I think like if you sit like if you sit like the best player in the world and you clone them, and you put them like one clone with a gamepad and one clone with a keyboard and mouse, the clone with the keyboard and mouse is probably going to win a 1v1, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think like for most casual players, like I don't think the peripheral you're using is going to matter that much. And there was also recently like someone won like a Fortnite esports tournament using a controller instead of using a keyboard and mouse. So it's not like it's impossible. You might have to get used to playing with a higher sensitivity. You might have to like consider getting a controller with paddles on the back, because like if you can jump with your index finger instead of moving your thumb off the thumbstick, that's another advantage that, you know, keyboard and mouse players get, is that they don't have to move their thumb off the movement stick to jump or whatever and stuff like that, which is why a lot of pro gamers, quote unquote pro gamers on the esports scene, they like the Xbox Elite controller or one of these other controllers that have paddles on the back, because then you can map the jump button to a paddle on the back, and you can keep all the ABXY buttons, you can map them to paddles, and you don't ever have to take your fingers off the movement sticks, which is another like a few milliseconds where you're at a disadvantage against a player with a keyboard and mouse. So, you know, there are things you can do to offset the delta in gameplay styles, but then you've got the hacking problem, Rand.
Yeah, the hacking stuff.
If you're opening up your console to PC gamers, you're potentially opening up to hackers, because PC games often don't have good enough auto cheat.
I'm gonna be honest with you here, Jez. I'm a bit worried about Halo Infinite in that regard, right? Like I saw all the cheaters.
Me too, man.
I saw the cheaters in Warzone, right? It's awful. And now that Halo's moved to a free-to-play model and it's on PC, I'm worried that we're going to run into a lot more cheaters on Halo. Now, granted, I remember people cheated in Halo 2 on the 360. I ran into all that stuff, and it was always awful when you did. But now I'm kind of just, like, I'm wondering how bad the cheating is going to be in Halo, because it's free-to-play on PC, where even if, like, someone does get banned, it doesn't matter, because they can just make a new account. You don't got to pay for Xbox Live Gold at all. So you just make a new account and you're back there. So yeah, I am a little bit worried about that and how it's going to affect people playing on console, you know? So I've always said that if the console players are paying for Xbox Live Gold, then we should have the option to be able to opt out of crossplay 100%. I
agree.
I kind of feel like the PC audience who hasn't really supported Xbox and who don't have to pay for any of that, they kind of just get the run of the, you know, do whatever they want. But like for those of us who've paid for Xbox Live and still pay for Xbox Live, it's kind of like, you know what, I should have the ability to like not play crossplay with these people. So, I mean, hopefully you can opt out. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people playing Halo, but it is something I am worried about, for sure. Arafat says, hey, Jez, the Killer Instinct website got an update out of nowhere. Is this normal, or are we getting a Series X and S patch?
I think, isn't Killer Instinct already enhanced for Series X and S?
I think it was enhanced for the One X, but I don't think it got a Series X and S patch. There's also some people thinking that maybe Killer Instinct isn't dead, and maybe that they found a new developer and this is the precursor to announcing a new Killer Instinct game and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the fact before that Microsoft isn't planning to kill Killer Instinct. Like, they have no intention to kill Killer Instinct. It's like, it's always been a case of they just can't find the right publisher or the right developer for it. And if you go to the website, the main reason that Killer Instinct is sort of like getting a website refresh, Killer Instinct actually has a very large web presence because it's the website's ultra-combo.com, and Ultra Combo has like, it's like a classic Killer Instinct forum that's sort of been around for years and years and years. Like there's a lot of legacy. There's a lot of legacy with the Killer Instinct website. It's a bit different to some of the other websites that Microsoft has, or a bit different to some of the other gaming websites where they're just sort of like, they're not really community sites anymore. They're just basically ads. Well, the Killer Instinct website is a bit more of a community site than some other websites out there these days. But I do think this bodes well. I think if Killer Instinct was completely dead, they wouldn't even bother updating the website. They just wouldn't bother. They just abandon it. But does that mean there's a new game coming? Does it mean there's a big update coming? It doesn't necessarily mean that because, like I say, it is a big community website. But I will say that I've just discovered that Killer Instinct has a comic book, and I didn't even know that existed. And I just discovered that through the new website. So there is a Killer Instinct comic, which explains a bit of the story, which I'm probably going to buy them because I really do like Killer Instinct. So that's very interesting indeed.
I mean, I hope we get a new Killer. I hope we get a new Killer Instinct this gen. That'd be awesome. Chief Nagel says, "Have you guys tried Splitgate?" I have not. Have you, Jez? It seems to be pretty popular on Xbox and everywhere now. The devs were having issues with the servers because so many people were playing it. Have you? Played it?
Yeah, I haven't tried it myself, but a bunch of people on our team were like, "Oh my god, we need to cover this game. It's huge. It's going to be huge. It's really good." So I do want to try it. It's kind of like I've heard it described as Halo or Destiny meets Portal or something. So, but I haven't tried it myself yet.
Lydia says, Rand, how would you compare the Ascent at launch as compared to Ori and the Will of the Wisps? You were down on Ori. Is it the same for the Ascent? No, I wasn't down on Ori. Like, I thought Ori is a complete masterpiece, and I would have given it a 10 out of 10. But the only problems I had were I had frame rate issues. There was that. You had the same issues I did with Ori. I think
Ori was the problem with the Ascent. The problem with the Ascent is that it has fundamental gameplay issues that need to be reworked, whereas Ori was just buggy.
Yeah, Ori just had performance problems. Really.
Yeah. Ori was like Ori needed like maybe a few more weeks in the oven to really get to that performance level that people expect. Whereas the Ascent needs a lot of work.
Yeah.
I think
like Ori's like a 10.
Playable.
Ori's like a 10. With everything perfect, Ori's like one of the greatest games I've ever played. It's like a 10. Like the highest I could ever see Ascent going, even issuing out like the co-op working fine and, none of the bugs and stuff, is maybe an 8. Like it's nowhere close to Ori. And so
I feel the same.
Yeah, I like Ori's an absolute masterpiece. And I am sort of sad that we're not going to see another one, but that's part of the whole emotional, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a lot of emotions, a lot of tears shed at the end of the second game. God, I love Ori and the Will of the Wisps. I should play it again. I have like all the achievements except one. I need to beat the game on hard. Maybe I should just do another playthrough. Calorex says, if Microsoft wants more games, why doesn't they just purchase Embracer? Well, because Embracer has 8,000 employees, and that would put how many employees does Microsoft have total? 4,000? Right? Something like that?
Microsoft total?
Yeah. How many employees does Microsoft
like
total have? 100,000? Is it 100,000? Oh, okay.
Microsoft is a massive company, man. You're talking like global. But like Xbox itself, like maybe 4,000.
Well, I was gonna say, like you buy Embracer, you got 8,000 new. Like, yeah, it's like that's a lot. It's never really about. Isn't it never really about the money you pay for the studios? It's about like, okay, now we got to bring all these employees onto our books. You know what I mean? And
like the logistical nightmare would be absurd to bring a studio that size.
Yeah.
On board right away, and also there's sort of like are a lot of those games actually making a lot of money? It's complicated, man.
Yeah, Arafat says if Microsoft acquired a mobile company, that would mean more good premium mobile games. Me and Jez talked about it in the last show. Like, I do expect Microsoft to buy a mobile studio at some point. It only makes sense for their goals.
Oh, Rand, there's something we're missing right now as we speak.
Ariana Grande's Fortnite concert.
Yeah, we're missing history as it happens within Fortnite.
Yeah, that's always pretty cool. Raiden Blaze says, "Please answer Calix's questions." I think we just did. Near Enix says supporting the Mayo Kardashian movement. It's always great. Let's see. Chief Nagel says, you talked about the Halo controller earlier. Do you think they will do an Infinite themed console, or because of the shortages, are they pretty much out of the question? I think custom consoles are out of the question, but I do think we will see custom Xbox-made Halo controllers, 100%.
Yeah, I think so too.
Let's see here. See any more questions? Forte says, I play shooter on PC with the Elite controller, and I still have a 2.0 kill death or higher. And I just got a DM saying that Microsoft employee numbers are roughly 180,000. So that's a lot of people. That's a big company. But yeah, Embracer Group is 8,000 employees, and that's like double maybe what Xbox has. Like I said, maybe Xbox is like around 4K, and One Bad Mother says around 5K. So yeah, So I think we've run through all the questions here. People saying your guys are running as long as Iron Lords today. Love it. See, people love the longer show, and I didn't think we'd go this long because there wasn't anything to talk about. But somehow me and Jez went for over 3 hours, which is amazing.
Man. And I apologize, like if I'm really tired and I was yawning and stuff like that. I really apologize, guys, but hopefully the next show I'll be a little bit more awake.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like this on a Friday.
Yeah, Alpla says, is Game Pass picking indie winners? I mean, hopefully. I mean, Ascent was good. It needed maybe more, patches, but I don't know if that's on Microsoft. Hopefully the Ascent is great. Omno was cool. Hades and Game Passes, I think, is a win. I think they're doing a good job. Arafat says, I think I owe Jez an apology letter after trying French fries with mayo. Uh-oh. Did you convert?
See? I converted him. Rand, when are you trying this, man? I'm not letting this go. You said you'd try it.
We'll see. But you know what? We'll wait. Halo, if you like Halo, you know what? Maybe I'll try it then.
No, dude, I ain't waiting that long. Try it next week.
We'll see.
I want to know your thoughts on next week's show.
We'll see. Question mark says, question.
Dude, give me your address. Give me your address, and I will literally Uber you.
You know my address. You mailed me something last year for Christmas.
I didn't save it, though.
Oh, okay. But yeah, I think that's it for the show, guys. We really appreciate everyone being here, all the support, super chats, memberships, just the comments. It all means the world to us. We'll be back hopefully next Friday, because I'd much rather do shows on Friday instead of Saturday with another show. Hopefully there's a lot more to talk about, but I have at least there'll be the Xbox event to talk about, Twitch gaming event. Hopefully they keep it to an hour at most instead of 4 hours like it was last time, right? I'm looking, there'll be some new games announced and some Game Pass stuff, so hopefully we get some release dates to stuff like the Gunk. Question mark says he wants us to answer his question. He says, do you guys support Edwin Snowden and Julian Assange?
Oh, that's a deep question.
It is a deep question. For like the end of the show, so
yeah, I will just say that I'm just gonna say yes, because some of this generally yes, because some of the stuff they exposed is stuff that I believe we had a right to know as a society, like the mass surveillance of innocent people in the West, not just the US but also the UK and Europe as well. And across the world. I think the stuff they exposed to in that regard is very, very important, yes. But some of them have been some of those guys have been leveraging it for political reasons, trying to take advantage of the situation. That I don't agree with. And I'm going to leave it at that, because that's a very sensitive topic, and I'm too tired to deal with it right now. But I do think governments should be held accountable. Of course, I do. Anyone sane would think that. And yeah.
I mean, yeah, government
That's
should
all I say about
always
that.
be held accountable. So,
Yeah,
100%.
government should be held accountable. Yeah.
Actually, Caloric says Microsoft should just buy Embracer. Actually, I don't want Microsoft to buy Embracer because I don't really think
There's a
Embracer
lot of
has.
talk there.
That's too much bloat, and I don't really think you need all those studios. They have a few good ones. I don't think you need all 70 studios at all. Like some of the ones they bought, like don't really make good games. I mean, there are some good ones, but like if you had to buy the whole thing, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But anyways, thanks for being here, guys. We'll be back next Friday. Jez, you got anything for the people to look forward to on Windows Central or anything coming up soon?
God, I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so.
I'm sort of desperate for some news right now. I need some news. I need some infos. I mean, I know things, but it's nothing I can write about. But yeah, I hope there's some cool games that come out of the Twitch showcase, and yeah, I suppose like I'm gonna be rocking some Hades next week, hopefully.
Yeah, Hades.
I just hope everyone listening has a great week and has had a great week and enjoy your weekend. You've all earned a break, most likely. And thanks for listening.
Yep. Thanks for listening, guys, and we'll be back next week.